killing me with his email.
Did you get all the paper copies? I printed double.
I appreciate that because I almost didn't want to read it.
You used to not get my email.
I know, I did. Now I just know what I'm missing.
He said wait till 10 after and then start.
We're almost ready.
I need a booster seat.
Totally agree.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the St. Tammany Parish Zoning Commission meeting of 6 p.m. on April the 6th. The call-in numbers will be on the website and also on the screen. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Seeger.
Here.
Ress.
Here.
McInnes. Willie. Doherty.
Here.
Barcelona. Fitzmaurice. Crawford. Drum. Randolph. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Announcements, please silence all phones and electronic devices. If you disagree with any of the decisions this commission makes, you have the right to appeal. Appeal cards are on the railing to my right. Speaker cards, if you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker card and get it into staff and they'll get it up here to me. Public speaking, be 10 minutes each side, 5 minutes for rebuttal. After your case is heard, please exit the building so other people can get in. Please rise for the invocation by Commissioner Randolph and the pledge by Commissioner Drum.
Heavenly Father, once again, we come to you to say thank you. We thank you for your grace and mercy. We thank you for the favor that you've exhibited upon us throughout this entire past weekend, Lord, with family, relatives, and friends. We thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for the opportunity to stand before you with our commissioners. Lord, we thank you for the residents and those that's in this parish that we serve. Bless our families, our homes, our lives, our endeavors in a mighty way. It's in your holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to make a little announcement here. The council has appointed Philip Truxlio as our new commissioner, replacing Todd Richard, and he's not able to vote or really participate in the meeting right now because all the paperwork hasn't been done. But Phil, this is where we meet in these things, and after everything's done, looking forward to you participating. Thank you. All right. Next item is the approval of minutes. The minutes were in your packet. Hopefully, you've had a chance to review them. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve. Commissioner Crawford.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Please vote.
The motion has passed to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Staff, we have any postponing of cases?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The first request is on the second page, number 2. 2020.
Number 2?
Number 2,
Okay,
2021-2218 ZC. Mr. Jeffrey Shane is here to address any questions the board may have.
okay,
We also have another request on page 4, which is the last case on the agenda, number 14. 2021-2286 ZC. And Mr. Paul Marone is here to answer any questions the board may have.
okay.
No other request.
All right, let me read them into the record, and, Mr. Shane, let me do that, and then we'll get to you. All right, 2021-2218 ZC, existing zoning is A2 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is I2 Industrial District. Location, parcel located on the west side of Compass Way North, South, East, and West of the Alamosa Park subdivision, being 27.2941 acres, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 5. The petitioner is Jones Fussell LLP, Jeffrey Shane. Owners Alamosa Holdings LLC and Abiquiu Holdings LLC, and Marjorie Hannes, Council District 5. Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent the petitioner and prospective purchaser of subject property. My client is Alamosa Park LLC. You will remember this case was on your docket last month, and we requested a postponement so that we could meet with some folks from Thelma Estates. We had that meeting, had good discussions, but there are still issues that need to be discussed and resolved. Councilman Toledano has been a part of the process as well, and in fact, our next meeting with Thelma Estates representatives is scheduled for Monday, April 19th. So for that reason, we would respectfully request postponement. I would like it set on your May agenda in hopes that we come to some form of agreement as a result of the meeting. If not, we will come back to you in May and kind of report to you what our status is.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, Commissioner Seeger?
Move to postpone for 30 days or until next month's meeting.
All right, motion by Commissioner Seeger to postpone till next month's meeting. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Please vote.
The motion to postpone carries.
Thank you. All right, the next one is item 14. It's 2021-2286 ZC. Existing zoning's HC2 Highway Commercial District. Proposed zoning is HC3 Highway Commercial District. Parcel located on the west side of North Causeway Boulevard, south of Louisiana Highway 22, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 10. It's 9.059 acres. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Paul Marone on behalf of BB Mini Storage LLC and the Bennett Brothers. We are still in the process of some discussions with some of the neighbors and also looking at other alternatives for the sites. We had asked for some additional time to continue that effort, so we'd ask that the matter be tabled until your next meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to postpone this agenda item for our next month's meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone till next month's meeting. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion to postpone carries
Thank
for
you.
1 month.
I'd just like to make an announcement before we go any further. I think all the commissioners have received numerous emails on a couple of the cases, and the staff has received them. They forwarded them on to the commissioners. It's case 2246 ZC and 2264 ZC. So they will be, in the record. We're not gonna read the emails or anything because they are part of the record. All right, next item is text change, 2021-2231 ZC ordinance. So did you skip it? Yep. Let me back up and catch number one. I know Jeff would like to get out of here. All right, item one is ZC 03-02-012, major amendment to PUD, Plan Unit Development Overlay, and a petition to add, change the zoning district classification for a tract of land comprised of 14.22 acres from A3 Suburban District to A3 Suburban District and Plan Unit Development Overlay. Location, parcel located on the north side of Bay Ridge Drive and east of Leeds Street, Slide L, Ward 8, District 9. It's 93.3 acres. Petitioner is Dustin Richard. Owner is BLD Investments LLC. Council District 9. This was postponed from the February 2nd meeting. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting a major amendment to the Lachiniere Plan Unit Development to reconfigure lot sizes and green space allocations. Phase 1 of the Lachiniere PUD consists of 40 duplex lots and has been developed with 80 condos. Phase 2 of the Lachiniere PUD currently consists of 81 duplex lots approved to be developed with a total of 162 condos. The applicant is currently proposing to reconfigure the 81 duplex lots within Phase 2 into single-family residential lots. The proposed amendment will create a reduction in the number of dwelling units permitted in the Lachiniere PUD Phase 2 by 81 lots and enable single-family dwellings to be the only permitted residential use. In 2007, 11.40 acres of the Lachiniere green space was developed to be included within the neighboring Phase 5A of the Bluff subdivision. Subsequently, the applicant is now proposing to formally add 14.22 acres of green space into the Lachiniere PUD that was previously dedicated as a conservation easement. In addition, the applicant is proposing to remove the 10-foot green space buffer that was previously approved along the northern boundary of Phase 2 and add this portion of green space into the lots along the north, which will create deeper lot sizes. Staff has determined that this request will create access issues, and the eradication of the 10-foot buffer will remove any formal access to this area. The applicant did submit a revised PUD plan that shows the elimination of part of Royston Drive, which will remove formal access along the roadway between Phase 1 and 2. Changes to the report are highlighted in red, and the commissioners have been provided the revised PUD plans.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shane?
Good evening again. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent the owner and petitioner, BLD Investments LLC, in connection with our request to make a major amendment to the existing PUD and also to expand the PUD and create more green space. Firstly, I'd like to thank staff for looking at our revised plan that was submitted only late last week and annotating or amending its comments to include the changes that we made to the plan. I'd like to take it from the top and tell you that from our perspective, this amendment consists primarily of two major components. And that is that the undeveloped portion of the Lachiniere PUD currently would allow for 162 units or lots. We are decreasing that density by 50%, and would now create an 81-lot subdivision, single-family residential. No duplex, no multifamily, single-family residential only. That's the first major component. The second major component is that, as staff has noted, through the years and in era, the common developer of these subdivisions was Crossgates Development. Some of the green space for La Cheniere ended up in the Bluffs Phase 5. And I have to chuckle because not only did the developer and its lawyer and its surveyor and its engineer, but also the commission and the council and staff, no one picked up this inadvertent error. It doesn't create any harm in that, yes, the area that was destined to be green space is now part of the Bluffs Phase 5. But thankfully, we have acquired additional property that more than offsets the amount of green space that ended up in the Bluffs Phase 5. So those are the two principal components of the change that we seek this evening. And hopefully those are well illustrated on the maps you see. Now, a few other details that are worthy of note. On March 22nd, we held a meeting at Sean Burke's office with Councilman Smith, but also with the stated representatives of the abutting subdivisions to this tract. And that would be La Cheniere Phase 1, represented by Mr. Jim Ewell, who's the president of their association. We also had John Wells and Grant Carlson from Turtle Creek, and we had Jeff Corbin from Old River Road. At which time we not only went through the matters that we're going through with you this evening, but we discussed some other details, one of which is the number of access points from La Cheniere Phase 1 into this new phase that we seek modification to the PUD this evening. That resulted in the elimination of what I'll refer to as the Royston Drive connection. And that's the change that staff has brought to your attention in red on your staff report. And if you will see on the revised plan that I assume is in your packet, and I know that I have given you a revised plan tonight as a handout, you will see that Royston no longer connects to Cross Creek Drive, and that the two access points to this new phase will be in the front, if you will, on La Cheniere Drive, and to the rear it will be Lead Street. The other issue I would like to discuss with you or bring to your attention is our request to eliminate the 10-foot buffer to the rear of the lots that abut the northern boundary of this tract, and they actually abut Turtle Creek. 10 feet has now become a problem of sorts, in that the respective elevations of our lots and the Turtle Creek lots has actually created a depressed or lower area within this 10 feet. That 10 feet is not designed to be any form of drainage or hydrology, but it in fact appears to the naked eye to be an area that was excavated years ago, and it actually traps, it holds water. So what we propose to do is to eliminate that problem. And by the way, with 10 feet of width, as you can imagine, it's almost impossible for the HOA to get in there and maintain it. It's very narrow to start off with. So our thinking is that because we are now changing the complexion of this development, meaning that we're not only reducing the density, but we're significantly enlarging the size of each lot, we want to have as much depth as possible to each of those lots. And we would like that rear 10 feet to become the rear 10 feet of the lot, as opposed to a 10-foot green space. We certainly meet all of our green space calculations, et cetera, without that 10-foot area. With that having been said, some of the materials I gave to you this evening were what I would consider to be letters of support from Turtle Creek and also from La Cheniere as it relates to all of these requests. You'll notice in the Turtle Creek letter that there are other issues that are referred to that are not before you this evening. They're issues between us and them as it relates to things like signage and irrigation, things of that nature. all of which we have tentative agreements with them. And there was nothing when we left the table on March 22nd that we did not think would be resolvable. And I'm happy to say that since that meeting of March 22nd, I have received these 2 letters from those HOAs. Perhaps some of the residents from the subdivisions are here this evening to speak, or perhaps some of the representatives themselves. But in any event, I suggest to you that there's a uniform consensus by our neighbors, meaning the subdivision HOA leadership that met with us, that the changes we seek this evening are not only are they have no objection, but they're in full support, because they view it to be a significant transformation of the type of development that is going to abut their properties. If you think of the impacts as it relates to drainage and traffic alone, going from 162 to 81, it's very, very significant. I might also add that the network for the infrastructure for this phase was previously installed many years ago by Mr. Miramon, the developer of Crossgates, meaning that some of the road right-of-ways were cleared, and in some cases, the sewer and water lines are actually in the ground already in those right-of-ways. Although we procured preliminary subdivision approval at that time, we will be coming back to you again because that preliminary subdivision approval has expired. You will see us as a planning commission when we are ready to present to you the detailed studies and plans and specifications that are necessary before we put a shovel in the ground. So in summary, tonight, of course, is a land use or zoning hearing. We request that you approve our suggested amendments to the PUD. Tonight is not a planning commission meeting, meaning that we understand that we will need to come back to you as a planning commission and present to you the data, the documents, the plans for your consideration as we continue to move forward with the development of this tract, which we think, in essence, will be a new phase of Turtle Creek. Not literally, but that will be the look that it will take in terms of lot size, the type of homes, the value of the homes, et cetera, all of which is with great approval and enthusiasm from our neighbors to the south, La Cheniere, and Turtle Creek, our neighbors to the north. That is all of my comments at this time. If some of you have questions later in the hearing, I'll be glad to address them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shane. I have a couple of cards, and we have a caller on the line. I'm going to take the people that are here in the audience first. David Champagne. This is for. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm David Champagne. I live at 124 Kilgore Court in Turtle Creek. I've lived there since just prior to Hurricane Katrina. And I have looked into the proposed development. I'm in favor of it. I agree that the reduction in density is a big positive for the subdivision, the whole area. The duplexes in La Cheniere, history has shown us they have not enjoyed the same property value and appreciation as the homes in Turtle Creek have. So the information that I've been able to obtain indicates that this is going to improve drainage and property values, and I think we have a very capable developer that's in charge of it. So I'm in support.
Okay.
Any questions?
Not right now. Thank you. I have a Robert Volante that it says he has questions about the conservation easement behind Kilgore Court.
My name's Robert Volante. I live at 136 Kilgore Court. The question I have is about the conservation easement behind Kilgore Court. As I understand it, the original property purchase, that was not a part of it. And now, if I look on maps, it seems to be incorporated into it. And I was wondering what their long-term plans were going to be for that conservation area.
Okay, well, that'll be a question that Mr. Shane or Mr. Burke can answer later in the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a caller, Stanford Owen. He left? Okay. All right, so we don't have a caller. All right, we'll go to rebuttal unless we have anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak. Mr. Shane?
Probably shouldn't have gotten up, but I did. So I did want to answer the question that the gentleman asked. That area will continue to be green space. And there has been discussion with the Turtle Creek homeowners leadership about the possibility of them taking ownership of a nature trail area within that and maintaining it. That issue has not been fully resolved, but we have offered to them that if they want to take ownership of that trail and maintain it, that we would provide them with that opportunity. That's something we certainly would address with you when we come back during the subdivision or planning commission stage. But the best answer to the question is that it is green space, that area, and will continue to be green space. It will not be developed with any new units whatsoever.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do either of you have any rebuttal? Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. I have a couple of comments, and then I'll go to the rest of the commissioners. At the entrance to La Cheniere, there's a brick portion where it goes into Military Road, and it's in kind of bad shape. And there's gonna be a lot of equipment, I'm sure, going across that. Do you intend to improve that, repair it?
Yes, sir. That was an issue brought up at the meeting with the HOAs, and we have agreed on the back end to fix that area. Yes, sir.
Okay, my other concern is because that pond that's there was put in years and years ago. I'm sure that there's been a lot of silt go into it, and I'm not sure that there's enough depth there to adequately handle retention detention. So I'm hoping that y'all will see to it that if it needs to be cleaned out, deepened, that will happen too.
Sure. Another good question. It makes me wonder if you were sitting in that meeting with us on March 22nd, because that issue
No, I wasn't.
that issue was raised as well, and it's a very valid issue. Although we believe that the pond has the capacity to take care of our drainage, we understand that to the extent that it might need to be desilted, enlarged, cleaned up, et cetera, those are all responsibilities that fall upon us. We've made that commitment to the HOA, but we will also verify that commitment through our submission of plans to you as a planning commission with regard to where our drainage is going to go, and if your staff engineers believe that we are adequately planning to capture and control that runoff.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go to Commissioner Seeger.
Mr. Shane, I have a couple of questions to ask. The lot with the swale behind it, what are you gonna do for that? Are they gonna fill that in and bring it to level? Right.
So yes, we'd bring it up to the same grade, and all of the drainage will be from back to front so that we eliminate the eyesore and the problem of captured water.
Thank you. My other question, I commend you all on reducing the density. That's a really admirable thing in today's world. The last statement under density and lot size, the amendment will also allow for a variety of residential uses within the same development site. What, besides residential, what variety of people?
I assume that would refer to the duplex or two-structure configuration in Phase 1, which are senior restricted. And this phase, of course, would be, again, single-family residential, but would not be duplex, nor would it be age-restricted. So it would provide some diversity. There'd be a composition of different home dwellers, if you will, based on that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve. Commissioner McInnes.
I have some questions, Mr. Shane. And I'd also like to commend the developers for a much better plan, I think.
Well, thank you.
How much of the green space is active?
I'm sorry.
How much of the green space will be active?
In terms of percentage,
Yeah. It looks like it's pretty much, well, a good bit of it is wetlands.
just a second, we'll try to get you. I know that we have the nature trail in the green space. This is a significant nature trail
Is that next to the swamp
that runs to the rear, yes.
back in there?
Yes.
Okay, that's nice.
Okay.
Who will be holding the easement?
Who will be?
Who holds the conservation easement?
I don't know that there is, this major amendment does not contemplate a conservation easement being granted.
Oh, isn't that term being used?
I believe it's just green space. Was there ever an easement?
We do have a conservation easement up on the north portion. That was part of.
Apparently, historically, the northerly portion was put under easement. Who it was granted to, I am not sure.
So it's just green space?
No, ma'am. The northerly portion of the
But the
green
rest
space
of it-
was submitted as a conservation easement, probably in about '04 or so.
Yeah.
When this was done. This was done just before Katrina. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at Sean because neither of us probably have as good a memory as we'd like. But most of the green space is not subject to conservation easement, but will be green space pursuant to the PUD controlled by you in terms of future use.
Okay, okay. I'm a bit concerned about flooding in this area, being so close to the Pearl River. And particularly the lots that are on that eastern loop road. So when this comes back for preliminary, I'm gonna warn y'all, I'm gonna be talking to the neighbors, I'm gonna be talking to staff about flooding history of this area. And if there is a flood history, I'm gonna start talking about elevated homes on piers. Because we know the Pearl River floods all the time. And we need to, we just heard a presentation on 2040, how we need to be smarter, build smarter, and anticipate what Mother Nature's gonna throw at us. So I just want to make that point that that's the first thing that comes to my mind is
Sure.
that Pearl River.
Well, your point's well noted, and I know that you will, but we ask that you wait till you get good data after it's been reviewed by your staff, and we can then have further discussion at the Planning Commission level as it relates to the elevations and the probability of flood. We're very comfortable that the phase will not present those kind of problems based on the preliminary subdivision approval that we procured years ago. I'm not suggesting that that approval won't be tweaked, because it will be tweaked to take into account current conditions. But your point's well noted. I appreciate you letting us know at this level, because I'll make a note, and that way I won't forget.
And I won't either.
Anything else now?
No, with that, I would second the,
Okay, we have a second on the
proposal.
motion. Commissioner Randolph.
I was gonna second it.
Okay, all right. So we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we'll go to. Oh, we had a lot of people here for that one. All right, we're gonna go to item 3, which is the text change. 2021-2231-ZC, that's text change ordinance to amend St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinance.
Mr.
Chapter-
Chairman, I think staff would like to read those text changes at the end of the agenda.
Pardon?
I think staff has a request to see those text changes at the end of the agenda, to move them to the end of the agenda.
Any particular reason?
Maybe to hear cases that people are here to see and not hold anyone up.
Leslie, do you know if you have any comment cards on any of the text change ordinances? I think there's comments on the text changes.
Oh, okay.
So originally it was part of the regular agenda.
I don't have any. Have you got any?
Oh, cards, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One. That was Jeff Shane's card.
Okay. We just got one.
We can move forward if you'd like to, Mr. Chairman, whatever you'd like to do.
Let's go ahead and handle it, and we'll get on down the road with it, okay? Let's see. Let me back up and I'll start the reading over it. Ordinance to amend St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 130, Unified Development Code, Article 7, Minimum Standards for Specific Uses, Division 1, Generally, Section 130-2213, minimum standards relative to cemeteries located in critical drainage areas. Staff, do you have any comments?
Well, if you've noticed, basically it's to add item number E or letter E, notwithstanding the foregoing, if the buried casket is enclosed with non-porous concrete or similar material vault, the requirement shall not be applicable. So the above comments or the above requirements would not be applicable. And this is requested to be added to the text.
Okay. Mr. Shane, you have a speaker card for?
Yes, sir. I think I filled one in. Yes, sir. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fusel Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. And I am interested in this legislation. I have clients that operate cemeteries, and we have had some problems where portions of the cemeteries were deemed to be in critical drainage areas, but as a practical matter, it was not believed that the cemeteries could not accommodate ground burials. So after doing some research and consulting with the councilman in the district where a few of the cemeteries are located, Councilman T.J. Smith, we also presented some backup in terms of state-of-the-art. At the time this ordinance was initially drafted, we didn't have some of the state-of-the-art materials that encapsulate coffins and did perhaps make them subject to pop-ups, if you will, if the water table was such that wouldn't support the burials. So we would suggest that this language be, of course, recommended by you to be included in the ordinance. And in speaking with your counsel before the meeting, I think that we agree that actually subsection E should be a continuation of subsection D. That is how it was drafted to modify the provision of D, and that would make subsection F now subsection E. Obviously, the added language is to modify what you can read currently in D, as in dog. So with that having been said, we would appreciate your consideration of recommending this amendment to the ordinance.
Okay. Emily, you have any comments?
Just that I agree with Mr. Shane's suggestion that instead of adding a subsection E, the underlined sentence starting with notwithstanding just be included as a second sentence to existing subsection D. And then rather than adding a new subsection F, we'd have, it would remain as subsection E. That was the way it was intended to be drafted by the council administrator, and I believe that that's how it should read.
Okay. So we'll need an amendment to make that change, right?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll make a motion to approve based on council's amendment to the language.
Okay. Commissioner Randolph.
Second?
Second, Commissioner Randolph on the amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, all right. So the motion will be to approve as amended. Okay. All right. Ron, you're comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second on the ordinance as amended. Please vote.
The motion to approve as amended carries.
Thank you. All right, next item is 2021-2238-ZC. Existing zoning is AT1 Animal Training and Housing District. Proposed zoning is A2 Suburban District and RO Rural Overlay. Location, parcel located at the end of Radio Road, south of Pine Street Extension, Pearl River, Ward 8, District 9. It's 19.25 acres. Petitioner is Jeffrey Nave. Owner is Globe Wireless Radio Service, Council District 9. Staff?
The petition property was the subject of a 2015 rezoning request, which changed the zoning classification from A2 to AT1 Animal Training and Housing District to accommodate multiple existing cell towers, which have all but one since been removed, the one of which is now defunct. Since the site is currently developed with a single-family home, the request will bring the site into compliance with the appropriate zoning classification and allow the single-family home or residence to be occupied.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nave, are you in the audience? So you're wanting to go from Animal Training District 1 back to a residential A2, is that the understanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just, you gonna build a subdivision, or?
No, sir. No, sir. We are under contract to purchase the property from Globe Wireless, which was a commercial enterprise, and it's our desire to simply turn it into a single-family home, which will be where we plan to spend the rest of our days working on it and making it nice. And we entered into the contract stipulated on zoning being changed so that we can actually attach electrical to to the building and use it as a home.
Okay, all right, good deal, thank you. Anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak for or against on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close it to the public, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Seeger.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Seeger to approve. Commissioner Crawford.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Commissioner McInnes.
Mr. Nave,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to point out, it looks like from aerial photography that this looks like a great savanna habitat. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, ma'am, and I think it was at one point the desire of a previous owner to turn it into something similar to almost like a global wildlife type operation.
Yes.
But we other than a couple of dogs and a couple of rabbits, we're not planning on populating it with a bunch of animals.
Well, I just wanted to make you aware of it, that it's a very special habitat. You have like a 20-acre remnant of this very special seasonal wetland habitat. It's got a lot of carnivorous plants, like
Yes, ma'am.
yellow pitcher plants should be blooming right now.
Yes, ma'am.
You've noticed. And if you do plan to develop or clear it, there'd be a lot of people interested in plant rescue. Just come, salvage some of those rare plants that are out there. So you know where to find me. I'm here.
Okay.
The first and second Tuesday of every month.
All right. Thank you very much.
And I'm a botanist and could let you know what you have.
Okay. Thank you.
All right? Good luck.
Thank you. All right, we have no further commissioners who wish to speak. so we need to vote. Please vote.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right, item 5 is 2021-2248-CC. Existing zoning is NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District. Proposed zoning is I1 Industrial District. Location, parcel located on the north side of Louisiana Highway 36, east of Daisy Street, Abita Springs, Ward 10, District 2. It's 1 acre. Petitioner is Rick Murphy. The owner is TRRB Enterprises, LLC, Rick Murphy, Council District 2. Staff?
The petitioner is requesting to change the zoning classification from NC4 to I1. The subject site is south of an existing residential subdivision, east of residential uses that are currently zoned NC4, and west of an existing commercial site within Abita Springs city limits, which is developed with Abita Lumber Company. The purpose of the existing NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District is to provide for the location of uses which offer neighborhood-level services in close proximity to residential development. The purpose of the I1 Industrial District is to provide for the location of industrial uses of moderate size and intensity.
All right, thank you. Mr. Murphy, you in the audience? Good evening, sir.
Chairman, Alfred Rody Blossman for Mr. Murphy, who's out of town. I'm a partner in TRRB. We had notified staff that I would be speaking tonight.
Okay.
Highway 36 runs 2.5 miles between Highway 21 and Highway 59. There are currently 25 office warehouses located on that roadway. Our potential purchaser wants to construct an office warehouse for his construction company on the site.
Okay. All right.
That's 10 office warehouses per mile along that stretch of roadway.
All right. Good deal. We've got, anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I have a person on the phone. Pambar Argot. Wish to speak against?
Yes, I'd like to speak on behalf of my wife, Pam Argoti.
Okay, you're online. Go ahead. Tell us the reason.
We own lots 12, 14, and 16, square 21, which is on the west side of Jasmine Street, across from the property. Those properties are designated as residential properties. They back up to residential properties. There's no way that we can convert our properties to an industrial use because they back up to residential properties, and it would adversely impact us if Square 20 was converted to an industrial use. Therefore, we oppose the zoning change.
All right, I need to get your address for our records as well, if you don't mind.
119 Glenwood Drive, Metairie, Louisiana.
Okay. All right, anything else? You want to stay online?
No, sir.
Okay, you want to stay online?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Blossman, we'll go to the rebuttal phase and let you.
Well, you know, I don't know why we would need an industrial zoning to put in an office warehouse. There's not going to be any fabrication. The purchaser wants to have his administrative offices and ability to store some equipment in a warehouse. There are many, as I said, many such uses along the highway. We have 4 office warehouses within 500 feet of our property, all on the south side of the highway.
Okay. So
And again, we abut Abita Lumber Company.
Let me go to staff and get them to explain why it has to go to industrial zoning.
If I'm not mistaken, we were informed that the petitioner or the person who's trying to build on a property will have outdoor storage. It will have an outdoor storage yard, which triggered the request to go to an industrial use. So under the highway commercial zoning, you would not be allowed to have outdoor storage, and that's the reason for the request.
Okay, I understand. Could there be some kind of rear buffer area that's left wooded?
Well, there'll be a rear buffer area since it backs up to residential anyway.
You'll be required, if the zoning change is approved, you'll be required to provide a 25-foot no-cut buffer.
Right.
But because there's an outdoor storage area, then the highway commercial zoning would not allow that. If your client is okay with, storing all of his equipment inside, then maybe the zoning commission could consider going to highway commercial or to, but.
So an office warehouse can be constructed in highway commercial without yard storage, is that?
That's correct.
Okay. Obviously, Mr. Murphy's been handling this, and he just called me to see if I could come tonight because he's out of town.
Okay, would you like to postpone this till next month?
Yes, I would.
Okay, all right. Pardon? Okay. The gentleman that's on the phone, you understand what Mr. Murphy is suggesting now to postpone till next month, till his partner get back in town to maybe clarify this?
That would be fine. I am still in opposition because any kind of outdoor storage or commercial or industrial use would adversely impact our property. Therefore, we'd love for him to alter his use proposal.
Okay, and we've got your name and address now.
Couldn't understand your street name. I'm sorry. Could you spell that for me?
It's Richard Argote, Argote, 119 Glenwood, Glenwood Drive, Metairie, Louisiana, 70005.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. All right, we've got that settled, so I'm gonna close it to the public. Is there anyone else in the public wish to speak for or against? Seeing no one, I'm gonna close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, sir. Subject to the discussion, Mr. Blossom, I move that we postpone this item to our next month's meeting, 1 month.
Okay. Commissioner Crawford.
Second that.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to postpone for 1 month carries.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
We'll
Appreciate it.
All right, item 6, 2021-2249-ZC, existing zoning is A1, RO, and MHO, housing, manufactured housing overlay. Proposed zoning is A2, suburban district, RO, rural overlay, and MHO, manufactured housing overlay. Location, parcel located on the west side of Louisiana Highway 1083, north of Oldman Road, east Bush, Louisiana. Ward 5, District 6, petitioner Maxwell McClintock, owners Maxwell McClintock, council District 6. Staff?
The subject site is comprised of just over 2 acres of property and abuts a site that was rezoned from A1 to A2 in 2014. The site is also situated adjacent to existing A2 zoning along the east side of LA 1083 and abuts sites that maintain the A1 zoning to the south and the west. The existing A1 suburban district designation requires parcel sizes of a minimum of 5 acres. The requested A2 suburban district zoning classification requires a minimum of 1 acre. The reason for the request is to allow for a future minor subdivision.
Thank you. Mr. McClintock. Good evening.
Yep.
Tell us what you intend to do, a minor subdivision?
Yes, I have a friend of mine that I'm looking to sell off one of the acres of my property for him to build a small home on.
Okay. All right. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this, either for or against? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Thank you. Commissioner Crawford.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Crawford to approve. Commissioner Barcelona.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Barcelona. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right, item 7 is 2021-2257-ZC. Existing zoning is A4, single-family residential. Proposed zoning is A4, single-family residential, and MHO, manufactured housing overlay. Parcel located on the west side of Nina Drive and south of Sherry Street, Lacombe, Ward 7, District 7. It's .53 acres. Petitioners Diana Zanella Fajardo, and the owner is Alexandro and Alberto Zanella Fajardo. That's probably butchered up, but I apologize. Staff?
The subject property is located in a neighborhood that is developed with both manufactured homes and traditional homes. While there are certain properties that maintain the MHO manufactured housing overlay within the Oak Lawn East subdivision, none of the surrounding properties in the direct vicinity are zoned to allow for mobile homes.
Okay. Or is the petitioner in the audience? Diana Zanella Fajardo. I'm seeing no one's coming forward. Commissioner Crawford.
Mr. Chairman, I'm familiar with the area. It was going to be a mixed discussion. I've gotten a number of calls from people and talked to folks in this vicinity. As staff pointed out, in that particular block, there's a lot of nice stick-built houses that do not have manufactured housing near it. In the absence of the petitioner, I think I might make a motion to deny.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Crawford to deny. Commissioner Randolph.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to deny carries.
Thank you. All right, next is item 8, 2021-2258-CC. It's a text change. I'll hold up just a minute.
That was number 7. Which one was that?
All right, it's an ordinance to amend St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Chapter 130, Unified Development Code, Article 5, Overlays, Division 2, Planned Unit Development, Overlay, Section 130-1674, Plan Approval, relative to hydrology analysis and traffic impact analysis. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, this is a companion ordinance change to one that was introduced to the commission last month. So I'll just, the entire ordinance is here with the code and section. I'm just going to read the updates, which are very minimal to this particular one. So if we go to page 3 of 4, and it's number 15, the words including hydrological analysis and traffic impact analysis are being added to that section.
What section is that, Ross?
Number 15 on page 3 of 4.
Okay.
If you're on the ordinance.
All right, I got it.
So number 15, the text including hydrological analysis and traffic impact analysis being added. And then on page 4 of 4, section D1, the text that's being stricken is if required, and text that's being added is only when all tentative approval requirements as set forth in chapter 125 have been satisfied, and when the Department of Planning and Development designates in writing that PUD overlay approval shall be substituted for tentative subdivision review by the Planning Commission.
All right. That's the only changes, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, anyone in the audience wish to speak on this? I've got a couple of cards here. John Martin?
Yes, sir. May I let Don speak first, or I'll come after him?
Sure. Mr. Don Henderson.
Good evening. Don Henderson, 223 B-Bomb Circle. As you know, I was here during the Planning Commission. Both Dr. Martin and I spoke to the planning motion that had been submitted to you all for a change. This whole process started back in 2016 when there was the flooding out in the Gibby area, additional flooding in 2018. A lot of complaints came into the council and to the zoning commission about building. And then Council Chairman Michael Areno formed a drainage mitigation work group that met for many months and finally changed.
Keep going.
Yep, yeah. That was quick. They finally made a change to Chapter 115 drainage and flood control, Article 2 flood hazard areas. And after months of meeting, they changed one word. They changed the word may to shall not. It's kind of surprised me, the motion that they put forward tonight includes the word may. May, in my estimation, means you can, you can't. It's very discretionary, which, in my opinion, would give those who are adverse to this the ability to go to court and possibly have their position upheld. With that said, there are certainly cases where you don't need any drainage information, you don't need any traffic information because they're high and dry and they're in well-traveled areas. My suggestion would be to include somewhere in here that a drainage hydrological analysis shall be required for zoning changes in critical drainage areas. We need something that has a little bit of a bite to it, something that's not discretionary, and that's my position on that one.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
That'll have to go through staff and Doc?
Thank you all. John Martin, 12375 Ark Road, Goodby Civic Association. I agree with what Don's saying. This is something, I don't know how y'all can make a decision on a piece of property without having as much information as you need to make a good decision. And obviously, getting zoning change in a flood zone and not being able to look at the fact that it's a flood zone just doesn't make sense. And I'm sure y'all have had restless nights when y'all have had to go ahead and change zoning, knowing that the zoning change is putting people in a flood zone. So I agree with what Don is saying. This is something that's absolutely necessary for y'all to make a good decision. I would not go into surgery without having all the information that I can on that particular case. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense for y'all to be hindered from making good decisions because y'all were not allowed to look at traffic, we're not allowed to look at flooding, and you need that to make good decisions. And it's going to make a big difference in St. Tammany Parish when y'all can sit there and look at flooding, hydrology, and look at traffic, and then say, well, this zoning doesn't fit that. because it is different all over. And I agree with what Don, there are places, and I like the wording that Don did, there are places that this should be looked at. In other places, high on a hill, wouldn't waste your time, okay? But I think this is a very good change, and I strongly encourage y'all to go ahead and make this change, but make it the way Don said, that if it's in a critical drainage area, this is looked at. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Don. All right, I'm gonna let legal comment on this, because if they're in agreement and staff's in agreement, then we'll need to make an amended change. Emily?
So I just want to point out that this ordinance change has to be read in connection with what was changed to section 125, 190 at last month's Planning Commission meeting, which changed some of the requirements for a tentative subdivision approval, which in that case added 3 requirements related to hydrology that are going to be required to be submitted at tentative, and that includes existing LIDAR contours with minimum of 2-foot contours extended to a minimum of 100 feet beyond the proposed subdivision boundary. Number 27, direction of flow of surface water and roadside ditches, canals, and drainage features, shown at a minimum of 1 directional flow arrow per street block, high point, low point, and/or change in flow direction. And number 28, typical lot drainage details showing lot design surface flow directions. Notes shall be included with the detail identifying the lots the drainage detail is applicable for. A typical lot drainage detail shall be provided for each lot drainage situation, i.e. rear to front drainage, split lot drainage, etc. In the past, this PUD overlay amendment has said that the zoning commission's consideration of PUD overlay may or could stand in for tentative subdivision approval. But it hasn't been clear when the PUD overlay review was actually going to take the place of tentative subdivision approval. So what this amendment will do is require the Planning Commission staff to certify in writing when a PUD overlay is actually going to take the place of tentative subdivision review. And if it does, the petitioner requesting the zoning change is going to have to include all of those things that are now included in 125, 190, which includes the traffic impact analysis and those additional hydrological studies which are being proposed through the amendments to 125, 190. So we're adding traffic impact analysis and hydrological information at the PUD overlay zoning change review if it's so indicated by staff. And if the staff does not indicate that PUD overlay review is going to take the place of tentative review, then after the zoning change is made, it will then go to the Planning Commission for tentative review. So you never skip that step. So I hope that clarifies some of the concerns. I don't know that it necessarily addresses all of Mr. Henderson's concerns about what he would like to see in critical drainage areas. And that's something that the council may also want to consider when they get this back, because if the commission recommends approval tonight to the council, it will then go to the parish council for introduction and then lay over for 30 days before it is approved. So I hope that clarifies some of the questions raised.
Don, you got a comment?
Yeah, if I may, and excuse me, Emily, I may be a little bit confused. My argument, a bunch of arguments we had regarding this, all stem at the zoning level, not the planning level. I recognize there's a whole process in the planning level, and I think that process is wonderful, the way it's set up. My concern is, why would I want to, for the first go-around on a zoning request change, why would I want to intensify the zoning in an area that can't handle it due to drainage? So if I come forward to you and I say, I want to change my A1 to A4 at zoning, and it's in a critical drainage area, I think the zoning commission should require a hydrological analysis at that point. Because I certainly wouldn't want to put 8 houses in an area that you can only support 1 due to flooding. That's the area I'm trying to get into. Now, I know at the Planning Commission, I mentioned to you that there is already a revised statute out there that allows the zoning commission, the planning commission, to consider some of this stuff, although it has not been committed to writing within the Code of Ordinances. On the way here, I was speaking with Terry Hand on the matter also, and he's kind of the opinion that, or at least he expressed to me that he seems to think this is going to end up being a requirement going down the road somewhere along the line, and I think now is the time to consider it. And you all have the right to approve this or make some recommended changes to it. Just a thought.
Thank you. You have any other comment?
No, I would just note that this ordinance change only does affect zoning applications for PUD overlays. It does not affect any other zoning changes. However, the revised statutes do allow the zoning commission to consider, in a general sense, as it relates to density, traffic and drainage concerns.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Martin has his hand up.
Doc, you got a comment?
Yeah, my understanding is that when somebody wants to do something with the property, they come to zoning first and get the zoning change, then they go to planning because you've got three different, you've got the first one and then the middle one and then the final planning. And it would seem like the best time to do the hydrology for y'all to have the information, if you want it, if it's in a floodplain, would be in zoning, and that would save everybody a lot of time and a lot of money. Because if it's not approved in zoning, then the developer doesn't have to go through all of the different planning steps, because it would be disapproved right then and there, and that's it. So it seems like the zoning would be the place to do it, and not let somebody spend money and go down into the other part of it. If that makes sense to everybody. It just seems like the first thing you do is find out if the zoning change is something that would be advisable to do because of the land and hydrology of the land. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So, approved? Okay. All right, Commissioner Seeger.
I have a question for legal. Why is this just for PUD? Why don't we have this information for any development in a critical drainage area?
That is something that the legislative branch could consider adding to these zoning ordinances, but this is what is being proposed currently.
Thank you. And I would like to move that we approve this with the added verbiage that it will be required in critical drainage areas as proposed.
I'm going to need you to state what amendment you would like to make specifically so that we can add that verbiage to the amendment.
115, I believe, the zoning commission or parish council will require additional materials such as the things that are listed in critical drainage areas.
Mr. Chairman.
Will include a hydrological analysis in critical drainage areas. Not that it may, but that it will require.
Okay, Ross, do you have a comment?
Just to expound a little bit on Commissioner Seeger and maybe with Emily a little bit, and just talking this through.
Bring your mic a little closer.
The zoning commission or parish council may require additional materials such as everything it states. It probably needs to remain may require, because will or shall with everything after that means then everything will have to be given that's listed and may not be needed. So think about how we're rewording this, and I don't know, I'm just bringing that up. I just wanted to point that out.
I can reword that. Zoning of parish council may require additional materials such as plans, maps, aerial photographs, studies, and reports, and will require hydrological analysis. Add the traffic impact analysis, and will require hydrological analysis in critical drainage areas. So all of the other things are may, except the drainage. Does that make better sense, Ross?
I'd prefer to have may include hydrological analysis and traffic impact analysis, and then a separate section of this, of number 15, where it goes up for debate, but then say, if the commission so approves it, I'm just speaking here to help move this along, shall be required within critical drainage areas or other areas that, the commission deem appropriate. So it needs to be may for some areas, because you don't want to give up that authority for hydrological analysis and traffic analysis. But if, as the commission debating this, wants to require it all the time for critical drainage areas, then it needs to be worded that way. So we just need to make sure it's worded correctly.
Okay. All right.
I think there's a second line to 50. And I would suggest possibly doing what we just did for the cemetery ordinance and just adding a second sentence after the word achieved to say hydrological analysis shall be required in critical drainage areas.
So moved.
All right. We have an amendment by Commissioner Seeger. Commissioner Rest.
Well, I got to throw another little kink in the cog here a little bit. Who determines what a critical drainage area is, and how often do they change and update as things change within the parish? In other words, I know we have maps, and there was a study done back, I think, in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere back. It's been a while, probably 10 years maybe, since that study was done. It determined all the critical drainage areas. Is that still a valid plan? Is that what we're using to determine? Is it still good for what we got today, conditions in the parish today? And if you add that verbiage, now that's the only time we can use it based on that data, because there isn't anything else that's going to determine what that is. So I'd be a little afraid to put that verbiage in there, because I think it limits us when it could be used.
Let me just say, Mr. Chairman, so keep in mind, you're going to have the language in 15, which say it may require. Doesn't talk about critical drainage areas. So the staff will have the ability, as the commission will, to look at that area, and then we may require more. But if you're in a critical drainage area, you have to provide it. Now, it's going to have to be, that was going to be my question to Don and Dr. Martin, how have we determined those critical drainage areas? But I think we've given ourselves flexibility in the first and second sentence that we can go back, if let's say we think it's critical drainage area and it's not identified on a map, we have the ability to request that documentation as well. I think we're covered in both areas, is my point.
And that would be my stand. I would want to make sure that it's not taken away if we got an area where we got people coming in and saying they're flooding regularly, and yet we don't, it's not considered in the plan, critical drainage.
Yeah, so I think here we have the ability to make that determination as well.
Okay, the other, as long as we had this ordinance open, I had another question for you. One of the repeat things that come before us are not as often, but often enough, as people are worried about untreated waste and whatever crossing their properties and whatever. I think we had it back in the Lacombe. There was the development over in Macomb that they wanted to do the PUD over there and change some of the property on Carroll. And one of the things was the people that were downstream when we're flooding were concerned about was waste coming across their property. And one of the things that I've noted, and I've seen it in subdivisions, is when we have power outages in the parish, for whatever reason, hurricane, bad storms, whatever, these individual sewage systems that are in the parish do not have, they shut down. The pump stations that pump from one place to the next, and I don't know about the treatment plants themselves, but I would suspect the ones that have plants on site have no treatment anymore. And at that point, that waste is raw waste going into our bodies of water. And I guess maybe it's not the time today, but I would like to see that we start considering and start looking at backup power supplies being required for these, whether it's small generators or the ability to bring them in within a certain amount of time. But this disposing for hours and sometimes days, in the case of Katrina, it was days on end, no treatment at all going on. And all that waste is just going into our rivers and bayous and lakes. And it's never going to change if we don't require something a little more stringent on that end. And I would like our people within the administration to look into that possibility of, and it's not the time right now, but since we were looking at this ordinance, I think it's something we're avoiding, and I don't know that it's right. I mean, I've literally seen the sewer caps coming off the top of the lines and the stuff just roaring out of them, going heading right into the bayou. And I can tell you, it's not good for the people that live in that area and for everybody that's along those waterways. So that's something I would like to see looked at. And as the, like I say, the critical drainage definition, you know, maybe, I don't know if it's due for a change with all the 2040 work going on, or if it's on some kind of timeline. I know you got a lot on your plate, but it may be timely to relook at that plan too, to see if it's one of those things. Maybe, I think the study was done by consultants last go-round maybe, and maybe in lieu of an extra $50 million within the parish, and if we're allowed to use it the way we want, it might be time to encourage another study.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. I know that the utility that I'm hooked into, they do have generators. Something happened yesterday that I don't know what happened, but I'll try and find out. But yeah, that's and there may be a state statute that requires utilities of a certain capacity that they have to have.
I would be surprised if it even gets reported.
Right. Commissioner Barcelona.
I have a question for Ross. Ross, as far as the current process goes, if a PUD overlay is approved by the zoning commission, then the next step, it would go to the planning commission. Would it go straight to preliminary subdivision? Or does it skip over the tentative subdivision phase, or what's?
That's the debate we're having now, and that's what we're trying to clear up.
Right. So this would require.
It would give us a better direction on when we can skip tentative and when we can't.
So right. So it basically wouldn't allow that step to be skipped at the tentative stage. That's what we're trying to do, right?
Yes, we're just trying to clarify what exactly the zoning commission needs to look at in order for a PUD overlay review to replace tentative subdivision review. Right now, it's not clear.
Okay. All right.
Okay, anything else, Paul?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner McInnes.
Yes, I wanted to just throw out, addressing some of the comments of the other commissioners, we could add to being required in all critical sensitive areas and flood zone A. And that would resolve Commissioner Ress's concern that we might be hindering ourselves by specifying just critical sensitive areas. I mean, it seems to me that if you're in a flood zone, hydrological data is very important. But I know, at some point, we're putting too much burden on what a developer brings before they're even approved. So I'd like to just throw that out and see if there's any comments any of the other commissioners have. I also want to say, to add to the comment on the central sewage systems, having operated a nature preserve that was downstream from one after Katrina, I agree, the backup power sources are needed. But also, the fact that all these treatment plants, they don't go through their own development. Their wastewater, the treatment plant is all on the edge of the development. And the wastewater goes on somebody else, not on them. And I think that is pretty unfair. Because if their own subdivision was complained, they would fix it promptly. Whereas if you're the landowner downstream, all you can do is call DEQ and not get a whole lot of response. So I just wanted to throw that thought out that they should have some holding facility or something where it's at least partially held within the development to incentivize them to keep equipment up to date and that everything is functioning properly.
Okay, thank you. All right. We don't have anyone else in the queue. So where do we stand? Okay. Mr. Fitzmark, do you have a comment? Okay. All right. Did everyone hear Emily's, would you?
So currently, we have a motion to adopt as amended by Commissioner Seeger, and Commissioner Seeger's amendment would add to subsection 15, after guidelines have been achieved, period, a new sentence which would read, hydrological analysis shall be required in critical drainage areas, period.
Okay.
We don't have a second.
Is that right, Tom? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we got a motion and a second.
No, second.
We
no
don't
second.
have a second.
Pardon?
There's not a second yet.
Commissioner Fitzmark.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Drum, thank you. The motion to approve as amended carries.
Thank you. Don?
Excuse me, do we need a motion to approve in a second for the amendment and then a motion to approve in second as amended? Do we need two votes, Emily?
This was just referred to the commission from the council. It was not ever introduced by the council as an amended ordinance. So I believe that it's okay to adopt as amended since it was just a referral.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don. All right, next item is 2021-2261-ZC. Existing zoning is A1A Suburban District. Proposed zoning is A6 Multifamily Residential District. Location parcel located south of US Highway 190, east of Linwood Drive, and west of Johns Road, Lacombe, Ward 4, District 7. It's 3.12 acres. The petitioner is Daniel Kaiser. Owner is Rosemary Geeter and Beatrice Gadira. Staff?
The site is currently surrounded by property zone A1A to the east, south, and west, and also surrounded by property zone A2 suburban district along the north side of Highway 190. A change in zoning will allow multifamily residential dwelling to be located in an area that is currently surrounded by undeveloped parcels of land and also single-family residences.
All right, Daniel Kaiser? Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Kaiser, 62079 Raymond Road in Lacombe. My family's been in Lacombe for over 50 years. Me, about 28 years now, going on 29. We have a property, 25360 Highway 190, that's 3.12 acres, and currently it's just single-family residence with a small shed on the side, a shed in the back, and we'd like to do a multi-family residential. Our plan is to have roughly 7 units per acre on there, just to build a more affordable living community for people in the area. Times are tough, people can't afford big homes, and we just want to do something simple, duplexes, a couple of buildings like that, just to have an affordable place for people to live. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of this change? I have a number of cards here, want to wish to speak and they're against. Jeannie Meads.
My name is Janine Meads. Did everyone get one?
Yeah.
Okay. What I wanted to show you, my name is Janine Meads. I live in Big Branch and lived there for about 30 years. And I'm here with my neighbors, some of them, the Blennays and Mr. Ragusa. Some of my neighbors have been having some health problems. The Corollas are in agreement with us, but they're not here. I wanted to show you by this map, commissioners, that this is the parcel of property we're talking about. This thick black line through here is the trace. The subject property abuts the trace. There was no mention made of that in the staff report, and I think that the trace deserves some special treatment. Also, you can see, if you look at my map, that there are large lot estates here. The only parcel, which I've marked in red on mine, but you should have it in crosshatch on yours, the only small parcels in the whole area are the ones in question. There are actually 3 different parcels, and they have been combined for the purposes of this petition. They've always been separately. They're separately taxed and they're separately owned, unless there's been a very recent conveyance deed. I also have overhead photos that I'd like to pass out.
Do you have anything else? Give it to us now.
Pardon?
Do you have anything else?
Yeah.
Give it to us now. Do you have
Well,
Plot two.
oh, okay. Well, yeah, this is for the shooting incident. I was going to talk right now about the overhead photo. The overhead photo shows a better view of the property. And you can see by that overhead photos that there are a number of small sheds and shacks on the property currently. What has happened over the years is that the Kaisers have built one structure after another and converted them to dwelling units. They currently have at least 5 units. We have some documentation that we'll provide to you too. Then I'm passing around as well the information about a shooting incident. I own the property adjacent to the subject property, and one of their renters decided he wanted to practice with his gun one time. So he came out and shot at some debris in the yard, and it traveled through the woods. It hit my property, which was rented to a single man at the time, and you can see a picture of Andrew, who was renting the house at the time. He was sitting underneath where the bullet struck the wall, and if he had stood up, they would have murdered him. He called the police. The young man was arrested, who was renting at the subject property. And this is the crime victim report I have. I only had one. So I'd like to see if my neighbors, the Blanés or the Ragusas, would like to speak to you now. And if they don't have anything else, I can talk to you again.
Okay, Dominic Ragusa.
Hello, I'm Dominic Ragusa. Thanks for having me. I bought a property which is a couple of properties down from the one in question about 7 years ago. I came over here from New Orleans. I have now 2 young boys, and I wanted to kind of get away from the city and move to the country and have the country life for my boys. Now, the property in question, if I heard them correctly, it's 3 acres, and they want to do 7 units per acre. So that's a 21-unit, I guess, apartment complex or whatever, doubles or whatever he wants to do. My concern is over the last 7 years I've been there, the kind of clientele they've been having. I've got 2 or 3 notices in the mail that they were registered sex offenders. So that was a concern, and just the quality of people that they're putting there, and the way he talks about he has sympathy for the people now because of the pandemic. You know, he wants to build affordable housing. That's a very big concern of mine of what that actually means and what kind of people he proposes to put in there. Now, as Ms. Janine had pointed out, there is more than one structure. There's actually a building on the property where they actually have a store where they sell goods. And I know that for a fact because I went there, and the lady who owns it or who's renting it said, come on by, come buy some stuff, some clothes from us. I don't know if that's permitted, and I don't think the rest of the residences are permitted either. And just by the history of the owners, it's very concerning what they want to do going forward. Because to me, that's not the best history, that's not the best neighbors, and be honest, I don't want that area, which is to me the country, to put in apartment complexes on a 3 acre lot. So I have concerns, the scope of it, and the clientele, the kind of people he's had in there in the past, and what he wants to do going forward with it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 more cards on the Blanay, Janice, and Philip, but they didn't want to speak. Is that still true? Okay. All right. Jeannie, you want to come back? You've got, looks like about 3 minutes.
If I could, Chairman Doherty, could I reserve that to rebuttal, please? No,
Well, I mean,
because I know they're going to have some other things
Okay.
to say.
all right.
And so I'd like to save my 3 minutes if I need it at the end. If I don't, I won't talk.
Okay, all right. All right, let's go to rebuttal and, Mr. Kaiser?
Yeah, so maybe I should add a little bit more backstory here about myself. So I've been in the Marine Corps for over 8 years now. I haven't been home in a while. So this property has been in my family for a while, and I'm well aware of the bad clientele, like he had mentioned, which I understand what he's saying. I'm home now. I've always loved serving my country, serving my community. I'm in the Air National Guard now. I'm still serving. And my plan is to change all this bad stuff that's happened over the years. I would like to build up the property a little bit for more affordable housing. Everything that's on the property now, I plan on tearing everything down. I don't want any of it there at all. He mentioned about the store that we've had, garage sales every few months when we're allowed to have them, because we've been told before about the stores that you can't have it as often as we liked. We do it whenever we're allowed to do it because we have stuff and we'd like to sell it. Who doesn't, right? So that's my plan here, is to build this nice community. I don't want this bad clientele that we've had before in the past. I wasn't here, but I'm here now. I'm here to take over everything, and that's what I want to do. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Jeannie?
Thank you. Ooh. Thank you. I'd like you to pay attention now to the sheet that says sex offender on it, please. If you'll notice the address, I've marked some of them in yellow and some of them are circled in pen. If you take a look at the address, it clearly indicates that this particular sex offender is living in unit or apartment 5 on this property. So I don't know how many units they have there. A month or so ago, I noticed a travel trailer and another van in the back that had cars parked up to them, and that usually indicates to me that there's something going on, somebody living there. As I said, I own the property right next door. I'm not living on it. It's currently rented to a very fine couple. He works for Kent Construction and she works for the school board. They have expressed an interest in buying that property from me. They want to use it as a single-family residence, just like it is now. Back to the sex offender thing, I didn't know you could do this, but just this evening before I came here, I went on the sheriff's website, and lo and behold, this same Van Sickle guy is wanted. That's what it says. This paper says wanted. So what Mr. Kaiser said about the garage sales is true. From the very beginning, when the Guederas acquired this property, they have been doing things on it which were just extremely disturbing to us. Even my renters talk about the continuing shots and the loud music. So they put together a big shed and started running a garage sale perpetually out of that place. We fought that before the zoning commission. And we changed the parish ordinance to allow for no more continuous garage sales. That was our little group of citizens in Big Branch that got the newer garage sale ordinance in. Because of this thing right here, it was completely obnoxious. I guess I don't really have anything else to say. I'm just going to implore you to please not make our lives miserable. The Corollas are a family that have been around the area for a long time. I've been there more than 30 years. The Blanets have lived there for a long time. Mr. Ragusa is a very new resident, but he has 2 small boys. And this development has been in the past, and I'm afraid it will continue to be, a magnet for people that are a danger to children and grandchildren. So please, commissioners, please do not allow this kind of terribly dense development in our large estate lot neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've had presentations and rebuttal, both sides. So I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Crawford.
Okay, Mr. Kaiser, have a question, please.
Sir.
Come to the mic.
So what we're dealing here with is land use and rezoning. And I did have a question, though. As Ms. Meads pointed out, this sex offender notification, it does state apartment 5 at your address. Do you have multiple rental apartments there?
The property is separated into 3 different acres. This man, Bobby Van Sickle, was on the farthest side acre, which I would like to address that we booted him. He is no longer a resident there. He is long gone.
Okay. And I'm not asking the question about the person or sex offender, but about the use of the land, if it's being used as apartments, and if you have up to 5 apartments there, or what, is that currently the case?
There's the 2 on the front center property, and then there was the one on the side property on that 1 acre.
Okay. You know, I look at this, and this is, for anyone who doesn't know, any of my fellow commissioners, this is in Big Branch, and I think everybody's been through Big Branch. It's one of those special areas in the parish. It's kind of a bedroom community. To me, the staff report here and the zoning, the surrounding zoning says it all. It's A1A, there's a little A2 there. As Ms. Meads has pointed out, with all these lot sizes and the people that have these estate lots. My personal opinion is I think an A6 multifamily zoning is out of place at this time in that area. I wanted to clarify one thing with staff. A5 is a duplex zoning, is that correct, Helen? And A6 would be like a 4-plex or larger?
That's correct.
Okay. So, you know, I'm not in favor of it. I don't think it's appropriate, so I'm going to make a motion to deny.
Okay. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, and I appreciate this council and the process that we have in place, where we have the for and against, because we get to learn a lot. And the intentions of the family is very, very well received. However, we're here for zoning and making sure that it actually complies with the zoning ordinance. So I second that motion.
We have a second by Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Drum.
Mr. Kaiser. First off, thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
I was too much of a wimp to become a Marine, so I joined the Army. On our drawing, it shows here 3 separate areas.
Yep.
Is this registered as 3 separate parcels, and you're trying to sell it as 1 lot? Or is each one registered separately, and then you're trying to combine them all and sell it? I mean, use it as one?
So they're 3 separate ones, but I'd like to make use of all 3 of them. When I put in the rezoning application, I asked if I could put all 3 acres on there, all 3 lots on there, and they said that was okay. So I guess I'm petitioning for each individual one, but the whole thing as a whole to be able to use it.
So what you want to do is rezone the 3 into 1. Is that right, Helen? Is that what I understand?
Well, eventually, if the zoning would be approved, he would have to combine the 3 lots together to further develop it.
He doesn't
Now
have
he's
to-
requesting to rezone the 3 parcels.
Okay, as one, right?
No, right now it's just a zoning change, not a re-subdivision. He's not combining lots together, he's just rezoning from single-family residential to multifamily. That's the request. If he decides to combine the lots together, that'll be a separate request.
Well, thank you, sir, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Barcelona.
Helen, for, A1, A zoning, is it correct that 1 unit per 3 acres is allowed?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So the request is to go from 1 unit over 3 acres to 7 units per acre, which is a significant increase. In the property north, the area north of 190 is A2, and that's 1 unit per acre, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, that's it, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny. There's no one else in the queue. Please vote.
The motion to deny carries.
Thank you. All right, next item is 2021-2264, ZC. Existing zoning is A3 Suburban District. Proposed zoning is HC2 Highway Commercial District. Parcel located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 22 and the east side of Highline Road, north of Cope Road, being lots 9 and 10, Fleur de Lorraine subdivision, Madisonville, Ward 1, District 4, 1.53 acres. Petitioners Kim D. Vincent, and the owners Kim D. Vincent. Staff?
The subject site abut properties that are zoned A3 Suburban Zoning District to the north, east, and south, and is also situated across from the street from property that is zoned HC1 Highway Commercial. The purpose of the requested zoning change to HC2 Highway Commercial is to provide for the location of moderately scaled retail uses. A change in zoning will allow for high-intensity commercial uses that abuts existing residential dwellings. Note that the objective of the request is to allow for the location of a restaurant with a drive-through.
Mr. Vincent, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Eddie Powell with Kyle Associates, 638 Village Lane North. I'm representing Ms. Vincent this evening. As was mentioned in the staff report, this is a request to change the Lot 9 and 10 of Lorraine subdivision from HC2 from A3 to HC2 for, as Ms. Lambert mentioned, to allow for the construction or development of the site for a small cafe, coffee shop with a drive-through. HC2 is the appropriate zoning to allow for the drive-through based on conversations with staff. If you look at some of the property information, Lot 10 is encumbered almost half of the lot by a large Entergy servitude that runs parallel and over Highline Road. So the reason for the requesting both lots to be rezoned is to give us the flexibility to try to fit the site within the buildable area of the 2 lots. We are only asking for rezoning at this time, and once we get further into the site design, we may be looking at resubbing the 2 lots together. The plan is to just build a small sort of cottage-style house looking structure that will be a cafe, coffee shop with some outdoor seating and a drive-through to sort of take advantage of the commuters on Highway 22. Let's see, we are aware that, we'll have to meet all the requirements of DOTD for accessing Highway 22 as it relates to traffic studies, as well as the parish when that time comes. We started conversations with them to see what that scope might be. And obviously, we'll meet whatever drainage requirements would be required at that time, if approved, if the rezoning is approved and we're able to move forward into site design. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. And we'll
Thank you.
go to that in a little bit. I have Amy Cameo.
I'm here. Cuneo.
Okay, good evening. You indicate
Good evening.
on the card that you're for this development, right?
I am.
Okay,
And I support the rezoning for commercial use. I mean, as already stated, the business is looking to come there as a coffee shop, cafe. There are no food options between the city of Madisonville line and Beatico, especially, I mean, a proposal that has a drive-through option. We have subdivisions after subdivisions. I believe that this business would thrive in this location, and in the big picture, the parish benefits from the tax revenue. I myself am a small business owner. I reside in Madisonville, and my business is located in Mandeville. I travel Highway 22 sometimes multiple times a day. I understand that there may be some concerns of traffic, but the traffic already exists. I feel the business that would come to there is people that are already driving Highway 22, not coming from various other places. I do not see how this would create a significant influx of new traffic. How many small businesses in St. Tammany have closed or had major reduction in revenue due to COVID? I don't have those numbers, but what I do know is enough businesses have struggled, and what those struggles mean is less tax revenue for the parish, something that we all benefit from. My feelings are not supporting a good business, and I believe that it is, especially location-wise. Frankly, it's small-minded. I've witnessed in nearby towns what happens when a community doesn't support growth. If residents want to continue to benefit from things such as good schools and an adequate number of sheriff's department, firemen, etc., we have to support tax revenue.
all right,
That's all.
thank you. And you're welcome to stay online for any possible rebuttal. We have a Tim email, I believe it's the way you pronounce it, and he's against it. He's outside. Oh, there he is. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. My name's Tim Hemel. I've been a resident in Madisonville for 40 years. I live on Kep Road, 221 Kep Road. And I have a business here in Mandeville called Microland Computer Center, and we've been here since 1983. And the traffic on Highway 22 is horrendous. What used to take me 10 minutes to get to Mandeville now takes me in the morning at 7:30 in the morning, might take me 45 minutes to get there. I'm not opposed to a small business coming there, but any business that tries to move into this area the cars have to stop. They have to cross 22 to get into this property, and it's just going to make it even worse. You're not going to put a turning lane there to get them into the property. And 20 years ago, when this subdivision was built, the agreement was it was going to be residential. So why all of a sudden now we want to turn this into a business there? It was residential for the last many years. There's 2 lots left in there. Leave it as residential.
Okay.
That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to rebuttal. Is there anyone else in the audience that wish to speak for or against on this? Come forward, state your name. You're for or against?
Against.
Okay.
Hi,
You need
my
to
name-
fill out a card as well.
No. My name is Sherry Ross. I live at 1329 Highway 22 West, Madisonville. I am Lot 8. So this proposed cafe drive-through is going to be right next to my home. I do not agree with it or anything. Because, yeah, the traffic is bad. Everybody's talking about the traffic. What about my home? I got to come out every morning and look at a cafe. I got to deal with the traffic now. The school buses in the morning time have got to, people run past the school buses. So you put a cafe with people trying to get in and out, you put more on the school buses. He put a train horn on his school bus because people constantly pass up the school bus. We don't need that in that area. Leave it as residential. I mean, I don't want to come out my house and have to look at a cafe. I don't care if it looks like a cottage. It's still a business. What if happened if it brings down the value of my property? So I got to stay there the rest of my life because that's there? You know? I mean, what are we supposed to do? Everybody's talking about traffic on social media. My home is there. It's just not traffic. My neighbor behind me, he just moved there. He don't want that either. That's a subdivision. It's called Fleur de Lorraine. How can you make that corner a commercial property when it is included in a circle of a subdivision? There's a lot more to it than traffic. Yeah, traffic's there. Sometimes it takes us a little while to get out of our driveway, but can you imagine with that, not a turning lane? There's gonna be accidents forever there. When there's accidents on I-12, they use 22. I've seen traffic on 22 in front of my house for 2 hours, sitting outside because of the accident on I-12 twice. So, I mean, what else?
Okay.
You know, that's all I'm saying. Everybody wants to say it's traffic. My home is there. I don't want to drive out. Would you like a cafe, a restaurant next to your house when you got out? And another thing is the noise. If this is a cafe, it's going to be open at nighttime. By around 8 o'clock at night, it is very quiet there. It's busy during the day, but at nighttime it is very quiet. And I can't imagine me listening to, hello, can I take your order for hours at nighttime? That's how loud it is going to be. When they knock the trees down, it's going to echo. We are totally against it. And I'm
Okay.
not the only one.
All right,
But please, don't let this happen.
okay, thank you. There was 2 hands go up back there. Did somebody else wish to speak against? Come up. You need to fill out a speaker card after you speak. State your name and
I was
address.
unaware that I had to fill out a special card.
Pardon?
Can I just speak against it?
Okay.
Yeah. My name is Jan Junker. I live across the highway from the subject property. We've been there 10 years now on Blackjack Oak Drive. And even though my property doesn't directly abut it, it's across the highway, I feel sorry for people who have homes that are directly next to this proposed restaurant. Once you buy a home and it's rated, it's zoned residential, you don't want to see a property next to it be changed to commercial. And one of the statements in the paperwork here is most interesting. It says, a change in zoning will allow for high-intensity commercial uses that abut existing residential dwellings. Who wants to have that next to their residence? Even though they're talking about a restaurant, it sounds like it could be up to the choice of the person that owns the property to build whatever they choose to there. And if it is going to be a restaurant, remember Highway 21 with Chick-fil-A and the backup that causes trying to get into that restaurant. So I'm sure it would affect the traffic on that highway also. So please, we would hope that you don't approve this change.
Okay, thank you. Please fill out the card, then turn it back in. There was another gentleman. Come forward. You got, looks like about 3 minutes.
Sorry to have to be here today to take your time as a commission, as a chair. I know each and every one of you have a home. I don't know if your home butts an industry, a business such as this, and I hate to call myself, in a sense, small-minded when it is my home, when it is my family, when it is my children, when it is my neighbors. But this is a residential area. I've sat here tonight, I've listened to you talk about other zoning aspects of subdivisions and what they would need to do to basically rezone to put subdivisions, green spaces, trails. Anything that had to go in there had to be looked at. What are the hours of operation? What if this business fails and it sells? What is the next business that takes it under this zoning? None of this is spelled out to us. I live across the highway from this. Address is 305 Blackjack Oak Drive. I don't think this is in my interest. I think this is in one person's interest, and it's in Miss Vincent's. And I think you need to think of it and think of us as far as being a small-minded individual that's not looking at taxes for the person that was looking to do this. They say they're from Madisonville. From what part of Madisonville? Do they live in a subdivision? Do they live on the back end of that subdivision? You hear the lady that's going to live right next door to this and have to listen to this. I was an operator in an oil refinery working 12-hour shifts, night and days. It's hard enough to expect my neighbor when I'm trying to sleep to not cut grass during the day because I just work the night shift. But to let every resident from Ponchatoula all the way to the causeway come through there to go in and out to say, I'll take a cup of mocha, whatever, and my resident is right next to that. What about my property value? If that house is directly next door and they want to sell because they want to get away from it because they can't deal with it, what about their property value? What is it worth to them? What is it worth to the individual that's going to come there and buy it? What about the tax that they pay, because we pay good tax in this parish? And we pay it wholeheartedly to be residents, not to have that industry or that company or that business directly next to our homes. In this petition, next to it is HC1. Why are they not going there? Why are they not asking to rezone that? They're telling us it's right across the road from it, across the power line. I wonder if Miss Vincent owns that. But you folks have to think about us, and we should be first as residents of this, because honestly, we are every one of you. So I would appreciate you take this into consideration, because I totally oppose it. And I would think everyone in my neighborhood would oppose it.
Okay,
Appreciate your time.
thank you. Sir? We got one gentleman that's had his hand up back here several times. I'll give you 1 minute. Not a lot of time. And we need to get you to fill out a card and turn it back in.
My name is Bob Samara, okay? I'm the one who just moved 8 months ago behind where they're trying to put that cafe. I paid a lot of money for the house, and I waited for almost a year trying to get the house. I'm happy, I'm content, I got family over there, I got kids. I'm all for business. I have business myself. I run the Abasha, I'm about to open 2 of them, okay? But I don't go bother people where I'm gonna put my business at, okay? It is, and I was told that this is a subdivision. I was told this is residential. I didn't come over there for a little business to come over there. I don't care if it was Abasha itself coming in there. I'm not gonna allow that. I don't like that. I'm gonna be worried about my kids, even just to go out there and play. I know what business brings. I have some in Covington. I know what, at night, who roams around there. Okay, so I would definitely appreciate you thinking about it. This reminds me of third world countries, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've had for and against, we'll go to rebuttal. Mr. Vincent. Well, I'm sorry, yeah.
Hi, I'm Courtney Vincent. I actually, that's Kim is my mother. I am the resident of Madisonville. I live in Villages at Bocage. I understand all of their concerns with traffic, business. The beginning of my neighborhood, we were not as big as we are now. Villages of Bocage is 400 and something houses. Part of it is actually Ponchatoula, part of it is St. Tammany. We had the Beatico supermarket be put in our subdivision, and we all were freaking out also and thought it was going to be the worst thing ever. And it has been the best thing to happen to us. We planned, if this goes through, to be the best neighbors we can possibly be. I have 3 kids myself. I'm not in this for the money. I work at a hospital with 3 kids. I'm a single mom through a pandemic. So anything to get me out of the hospital, I am for. I understand your issues. I do. And you standing behind me saying, write a check, write a check, write a check. I don't need that. And I understand you don't need it. But you don't need to be in my ear also
Ma'am,
yelling it.
speaking to the mic,
Okay.
please.
So I'm sure you've heard him behind my ear the entire time we're over there. I don't want this to be an issue for the neighbors. We thought this would be a great idea. I asked, I know it's social media, but months ago I asked, what if you could see a business, what would you want open and where would you want it? They all said Highway 22 and they all said a coffee shop or something for kids. So when my dad actually passed away pre-pandemic and left me some money behind and said, get out of the hospital. So this is my attempt. I'm not here to make money off of anybody. I'm not here to do anything. I would like to better myself, my community, my kids. I'm not here to ruin anyone's neighborhood. I'm not here to put a McDonald's. It's going to be a small coffee shop and nothing more. And there's going to be a buffer. That is why there is not a house there now. There's high lines all across it. That is the only reason there's 2 lots left in that subdivision. They released the subdivision. There's no HOA clause with this. They released the entire subdivision part of it. If they knew that there was going to be a house built there, why would he release that, the man who owned the property? The reason nobody has bought it is because there are high lines. It is perfect for a commercial spot. Nothing can be built under those high lines.
Okay, thank you. All right, some of the folks that came and spoke against, we're in a rebuttal phase, so if you'd like to speak in rebuttal. Pardon? Okay.
No, I just want to reemphasize what Ms. Vincent just said. You know, this is a relatively small impact development plan. The buffers that are going to have to be met once the site planning's done are more stringent than if it stayed, you know, residential. You know, we're going to have to maintain 25 feet, I think, on the, you know, adjacent to the residential. We're going to be further than that anyway by the time we lay everything out. So it's really a pretty low impact development. It's a great location given the proximity to the cross street. It just doesn't make sense that those would be residences right there. Obviously, they would have already been residences if it did. Talking about the traffic, we mentioned it before, we will definitely have to abide by all requirements of DOTD as well as the parish for our traffic study, and then any infrastructure improvements that would have to be done, we would absolutely have to do those, or obviously we wouldn't be able to build it. The plan is most likely for just a restricted entrance on Highway 22 to try to minimize cross-flow traffic. Pretty sure DOT is going to require us to do that anyway. So we're going to make this as low impact as we can, and just appreciate your support.
Okay, thank you. All right, some of the folks that spoke against were in the rebuttal phase. If you wish to comment any further.
I understand that she's a single mom and all, and they told her to go down Highway 22. Highway 22 is very long. They have a lot of other places that she could have picked. Why right there by a neighborhood? They have commercial down the way. They have the dollar store. They could have picked right there. Why would you come to disrupt homes that are right there? I mean, I don't get that. Oh, it's going to be a good place for you. It's going to be a good business for you. What about us? I just don't get it today. Everybody can just go and, I'm going to buy that and I'm going to do that. Nobody thinks about the families that have been there. It's all about this, all about that. I just want y'all to really realize that goes there, what it does to our property. Just like the man said before, what happened if it fails? Then we're going to have to look at a eyesore of a place just sitting there. You got Starbucks, PJs, and all. Who's to say? you know? I just want it not there. The traffic, yeah, it's a nightmare now, yeah, but it calms down after a certain time and it gets quiet. We can sit outside and you can hear a pin drop. I don't want to sit outside and hear a drive-through constantly, like I said before. So it's a lot to do with peacefulness that's there and all that too, just not because we don't want it there. I don't want to have to adjust my life for a coffee shop. I don't care if you got to drive through Madisonville to go to all the way to get a coffee here, drive that way to get a coffee there. Everybody's doing what they have to do today. But don't come disrupt us over here. So
Okay.
please object to this. I just don't agree with it, and a lot of other people don't.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. You're against?
No, I'm in rebuttal. My name is Kim Benson. I am
Okay, but are you for or against?
for.
She's the petitioner owner.
For the change in the zoning
Yes,
to allow the coffee shop?
yes.
Okay.
She's the petitioner owner.
I'm the owner.
The rebuttal time on that side of it's already expired.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else in the against side wish to speak? All right, I'm gonna close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Thank you, sir. I live about 1.5 miles down the road. And Ms. Vincent, I appreciate what you're trying to do. Mr. Powell, thank you for the presentation. This is simply the wrong place to do this. And the biggest problem I have, while you want to open a coffee shop, once it's rezoned, it is rezoned. If it's sold later, it could be a Burger King or a McDonald's. Therefore, I'll make a motion to deny.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to deny. Commissioner McInnes.
Yes, I wanted to say that just looking at a map and the zoning along Highway 22, I felt I needed to go take a look at this also. I wouldn't have if I'd known you'd live so close. But, and yes, there's a lot of HC1 and HC2 along Highway 22 between Madisonville and Gust Island. But a lot of times these areas are kind of clustered. And you'll have a little cluster of businesses and then a cluster of residential. And this area is a cluster of residential. And even if it had been across Highline Road where it's already zoned HC1, that would have been easier to think about than being right, you know, with a home directly to the east and a home directly to the south. It just doesn't seem appropriate. So I second the motion.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to deny. I see no one else in the queue. Please vote.
Now, the motion to deny carries.
Thank you. All right, next item is 2021-2266-ZC. Existing zoning is NC4, Neighborhood and Institutional District. Proposed zoning is HC2, Highway Commercial District. Location, parcel located on the south side of Louisiana Highway 22, west of Oak Park Road, and east of Gust Island Road. Madisonville, Ward 1, District 4, it's 1.94 acres. Petitioner is Zachary and Krista Miller. Owner is Zachary and Krista Miller. Council District 4. Staff?
The purpose of the existing NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District zoning is to provide for the location of uses which offer neighborhood-level services in close proximity to residential development. While the purpose of the requested zoning change to HC2 is to provide for the location of moderately scaled retail uses. The abutting properties are zoned NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District to the east, west, and Augusta Island Estate PUD to the south, which is developed with existing single-family residences. The objective of the request is to accommodate for a proposed auto repair shop.
Thank you. All right, you folks must be the Millers.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are y'all? And appreciate y'all's time for being out here tonight. I guess we'll just make a long story short. We purchased a home that we live in there at 1713 Highway 22 in Madisonville almost 2 years ago now. During COVID last year, I got laid off from work. I had a hobby shop on the side of my home. So I resorted, I have a large family. We have 5 kids at our house, and we're expecting a 6th. So to be able to take care of the children, I started doing some light mechanical work from my hobby shop on the same property. We're kind of new to business ownership and all that. We don't really know too much about it. We found out that we were zoned commercial. We thought that the NC4 commercial was what we needed. So we decided to open an LLC and do all the paperwork needed to try to run a mechanic shop out of that facility. Come to find out, we are not in the correct zoning. So we're trying to do what we can to get the zoning changed. So we have about 2 to 3 vehicles a day right now that we're looking at. On the repair side, our property is about 27 foot above sea level. No matter what we do on the property, it should not affect any surrounding properties for drainage or flooding. Do not produce more decibels than the highway. The highway produces often about 65 decibels on average of noise. At our garage door, we average 59 decibels. And that's read through a Respiro decibel meter.
Yeah, we're quiet. Our hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. We don't have, like, I'm sure there's a neighbor here that is opposing it. I think that's their only complaint is the noise, but we're very considerate of that. I'm asking or begging almost, like, to let us have this change. It's been the biggest blessing for my family. My 3 boys with my previous marriage lost their father right before the pandemic. And just him being home, it's just been such a blessing. And then, as y'all know, having a business, if we have to move somewhere else, the rent and all of that, I mean, it's just such a great thing. We've been doing really well with it, and our neighbors to the right use us, neighbors across the highway on both sides, residents of Jackson Court, they all, been using us. We've got over 23 signatures of people within, how many, 1,500?
Within 1,500 foot, 23 of our neighbors and surrounding
Are in favor.
of the zoning changes, and have names, addresses, and signatures. We have 10 businesses within a half a mile of our property.
Well, they know, she's driven on, everybody knows
Absolutely.
122 where we're at.
There's 20 businesses within 2.5 miles. So we're 35 businesses within 4 miles of our property. I think the closest to the zoning that we're looking for is the Liberty Storage. It's 1,626 foot from driveway to driveway, 1,503 foot from property line to property line. I'm not very familiar with zoning, but I would expect a storage facility is probably similar to the zoning that we're looking for today.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak in favor? Yes, come forward and state your name and address, and you'll need to fill out a card.
Hello, my name's Ashton Dyer. I just moved, I don't know the actual address, it's on 59. I literally just moved 3 days ago with a girlfriend. But I've lived in Mandeville for 20 years. I just started working with Zach, helping him out. I was laid off during the pandemic, 3 months in. I was unemployed for 6 months. I'm disabled. He's given me an opportunity to go back to work and has worked with me and my disability to give me an opportunity to make some money. It's been nice not having to stay at the house. We have one other thing he didn't mention I wanted to let y'all know about. We took the time and consideration to look at closed cell spray foam and layered it about 6 inches thick on the building, on the interior, all the way from the roof to the floor to try to moderate some of the noise that came out of the building. Like they said, we are done at 5 o'clock. We're not making a bunch of noise in the middle of the night. We all want to go home and hang out with our families too. So it's been really good for me, and I would hate to lose it. They're Christian, great people to do business with. So if you can, just try to consider if there's a way that we can stay there and continue serving people in the community.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this zoning change? Seeing no one, I'll go to the, I've got a card here on Harold Bergeron, who wishes to speak against.
You have to excuse us. My wife broke her foot on Easter, and we haven't got it fully repaired, so we're kind of awkward with what we're doing. I'm Harold Bergeron. This is my wife Ruth Ann. We live right next door. We're at 1715 Highway 22 West. And they certainly paint a nice picture of an auto repair business, but let me tell you, it is not that way. The first thing that hits us is an economic impact. We moved here 7 years ago, and there were two houses of consideration very similar to each other. Ours that we bought was $120 a square foot. The other was $102 a square foot. And we asked, why was the big difference? That other house was actually bigger. The difference was it was adjacent to a business. Okay, this house was sold in, let's see, okay. Well, I'll go to that in a minute. Okay, so what's the other impact on us? Well, it's quality of life. They claim that they don't make any noise. I can tell you, sitting there, you can hear them banging on stuff. You can hear the impact wrenches running. You can hear them revving the motors up. Sometimes the the noise is so loud, we can hear it from our living room, which is on the opposite side from where they are. They are adjacent to our property on our side of the property. So it's not like, I mean, if you've ever been in an auto repair shop, you know what I'm talking about. And then have an auto business come in a residential area, you go from Gust Island to Oak Park, it's nothing but residences. That's why we picked it. We lived in a subdivision in Laplace, and it's crowded. So we wanted a nice, peaceful area. We found it. Then when they moved in, things started changing right away. Okay, they bought the house in October of 2019 as a single-family dwelling. Okay? And in January and February, somewhere in that time frame, they erected a big steel building. Well, we thought it was a garage because that place didn't have a garage. Well, it turns out that my wife was delivering Easter candy to them just before Easter, and it turns out it's a three-bay housing. Well, what they said was, well, okay, we work on cars as a hobby, and those are places that we're going to put the cars for our kids. And when there's a wooden building, they're going to modify that for the fourth one. Okay, well, right after that, more cars started coming in, not hobby cars. We're talking about trucks, SUVs, sedans, and at times there were so many there, they couldn't put them all in their front yard, so some of them were parked out on the shoulder of the road. If you ever tried to get out of your driveway when the car is blocking your view, you can't do that. Okay. We noticed, too, that as things go on, that they're more and more in a business mode. There's more and more things that are going on. Now, I complained and I talked to Dennis Hickey. He came out and inspected the property, and he told me then that actually the metal building that had been put up didn't have a permit, and that there were lots of violations, and he was going to bring it to here. But that's why we're here. And listening to all of this, I mean, I've never been to one of these meetings before, but we've been here for 2.5 hours. It seems like the way you do it is you ask permission first and then you build. Well, we're talking about here, it's already built, it's already running. You got a business that's running. And now he's asking permission to rezone it. What about us? Don't we matter? Doesn't it, you come along and you disrupt this whole train of residential areas. So I sit down there and say, well, okay, if he's ignoring all these laws, what else? Well, I looked at the LADEQ website, and they have some very particular things about automotive businesses trying to protect groundwater. We get our water from a well, as do several of us in that little square next to him. What about, how's he protecting it? How's he keeping it from getting contaminated with his auto waste? And those are listed as hazardous waste. Then, okay, I said, well, what's next? Well, he's in a building, he's doing repairs inside a building where you have flammables. Okay, cars have gas in them. Has the fire marshal made an inspection? Does he comply with any of those regulations? Don't know. And then I got to thinking too, well, he's running a business, does he have a business license? And if the answer is yes, then you have to ask yourself, how did he get a license for a property that's not zoned for the kind of business he wants to have? So we ask you, don't approve this. I mean, I feel for them, but he was operating that business long before the pandemic ever set in. So don't necessarily get yourself too fooled. And he may have had a second job and got laid off, and I feel for that. But at the same time, I don't think it's right for me to have an auto repair shop next to my house.
I'm Ruth Ann Bergeron, living at 1715 Highway 22. One of the things that really struck me, all this is going on in the from last March until today. When you sent a notice to us saying that this hearing was today, within a week, his sign went up on his building as to what his commercial name was, Elite Auto Tech. I Googled that. I found out that according from his webpage, well, first from his Facebook, he's getting recommendations of his good work on June of 2020. Okay? I look at his webpage, and his webpage has recommendations of his work. Now, I looked at the beginning of March when the notice went out. It has it stating that 3 months ago this recommendation comes. So we're doing everything in reverse. Now, not only that, when I look at his webpage, it says that I have 20 years of experience. I have 32 mechanics. My contact information is 1-800-123-4567. However, but it starts out 1-800-123, whatever the number is. The contact location is somewhere in Virginia.
They have their own record service?
Yeah, and they have their own record service. I mean, and honestly, records do come in and out quite often. You hear all of those noises. You hear distributors that are going to park right on the side of Highway 22. I employ, please do not put this in this whole residential area.
One of his delivery trucks that came in, and there were so many vehicles in his yard that they couldn't get in. So they pulled in front of our house. Well, you know, it's been raining a lot here. They cut a big old gouge in the soft dirt that's there next to the pavement. Now, I realize that belongs to the parish, not to me, but I still have to maintain that. And that's still in front of my house, and now we got this big old swath of torn up land right there. I mean, it's just, the whole thing is not as pretty a picture as you've been painted. Now, they went through, they went through and they cleaned up all the brushwork, which was hiding what they were doing, okay? They moved a lot of the stuff around in their yard, but if you go look in their backyard, you're gonna see some of this junk that was in the front yard.
You know, and we can't really see that, but there is a neighbor behind us Her name is Claudia Stein. She would have been here, but she was just released from the hospital from heart surgery. So she typed up something saying what her complaint was, that she is adamantly against it. You know, and what she's adamantly against, would you like me to read her complaint, or can I
If you
just?
only have, looks like a minute and 51 seconds. Huh?
Well, in summary, she's saying that she absolutely opposes it because of the noise and the sight, and that, I'm sorry, and because of the depreciation of her property value.
Okay.
Thank
Can you turn the letter in to our staff?
Yeah. Yeah, she couldn't be here.
Thank you.
We
Anything
thank-
else?
We thank you for your
Thank
time,
you.
I appreciate that, but we've never done anything like this before, so that strange noise you heard was my knees knocking, because I'm nervous.
Good. Thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to speak against? Let's go to rebuttal. Mr. and Ms. Miller, you wish to rebut any of the things that have been said?
I understand some of the concerns that neighbors have, and we are trying to clean up around their property and get everything behind the fence, so nothing would be visible. They have an 8-foot fence right now
They can't even see our yard.
between our property and this neighbor. You cannot see anything. I can't even see their house. I
I've
can
never
see their
even seen
chimney.
his face before. I couldn't even tell you that was my neighbor. Not kidding.
Want to make an example. First of all, I want to address the reviews. I thought we were doing the business correctly. I got laid off last March from my job at Christian
Might have been
Brothers.
April. I don't know.
Might have been the first week of April. When I got laid off, I didn't have any options at that point. I tried to get jobs at many other places, and nobody was hiring. So I had to do what I had to do to provide for my family. Now, that's why I have reviews on my Facebook page. I do not have a web page. The web page that they're talking about, I have seen it. That is not my web page. We're 32 mechanics, 20 years, tow truck company. I've seen the web page. That is not my web page. Also, how I met my neighbor, I was running my boat at about 2:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday. I was going fishing, bringing my family fishing the following morning. And he comes over cussing at me, telling me I can't do that, and to
You have neighbors
consider
Saturday.
neighbors. Never met the guy. So I told him, oh, it's a nice way to meet you. Oh, and ever since then, it seemed that they're trying to do everything in their power to go against us. So, and
Yeah.
we have been excellent neighbors to everyone around, including Miss Claudia. I've done things for her, and she's behind an 8-foot fence in the back of my property. I have 23 signatures of all the surrounding neighbors, including to my right, directly across the street. There's 3 places directly across the street from our property. All of those people are for the rezoning of this property.
And everyone's mentioned, like, traffic and, where we live, it isn't easy just to shoot to Mandeville or Covington. And I do think that there is a need for this where we are. There's a lot of changes. There's Tucker Transmission, a mile down the road. He's got neighbors next to him. The only thing that I'm hearing is the noise, and like I said, we've taken every single measure possible as far as the insulation, the hours of operation, stuff like that. As far as lying, we're gonna come and ask, we're doing what we want, then asking permission. No, we truly, I promise you, he worked at Christian Brothers, he was the head tech over there, he didn't have a job anymore. Oh, we have this shop, and he has loyal customers from being in business since he opened a business at 21 years old. He had Riverside Auto and 190. He's been doing this for so long. So people saying a year and a half ago, best mechanic ever, that's because they've been to him, not at our house. You see what I'm saying? Like, we're not lying. I don't know. I really don't know what else to say. I think that it would be good for everyone in the surrounding community. I don't see how it tears down the property value of our neighbor to the left. Please consider the zoning change.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir, you have some comment?
Are we all able to see an aerial picture of the shop? It's not a mechanic shop you would think. It's literally a small building that has 3 garage door bays, and it's tight. There's only 2 mechanics besides Zach. Zach is usually running with customers on the phone and handling that. So there's only 2 guys in there. We're not banging on things. We're not revving engines. These are customers' vehicles that we have to take care of and give it back to them in a good working order. We're not going to be revving engines for no reason. There are cars that we have to do work to, and occasionally there will be something that's loud. But for the most part, we try to be understanding that there's neighbors and people around us and take that into consideration.
It's not very often, and like he said, the highway, oh, I'm sorry. I said it's not very often that it's loud. I mean, I have a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, I have teenagers that we live right there, and I'm expecting another one. Obviously it is our business, but there's no concern with the noise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the other gentleman that's against, do you have any rebuttal?
First of all, let me make it clear, I am an ordained deacon in the Baptist church and I do not cuss. The incident he was talking about is that he was tuning up his outboard motor. The boat was backed up toward our fence and he had been revving it up for quite some time. Now, if you know anything about outboard motors, they're not equipped with mufflers. They get their muffled sound because they're in the water. This is not in the water. So I went over and told him, I asked him to stop, because it was just really, really irritating. And he just sort of shooed me off and continued on for another 15 or 20 minutes. But I do not cuss.
Okay, thank you.
Now, in terms of it's not his website, if you Google his name, I can tell you, this is what you get. Here it is.
And it is his number and the name of the
Yeah.
Elite Auto Tech.
Elite Auto Tech, right there.
Okay,
And there's his sign.
all right, thank you.
One other thing I didn't hear his answer. How are we protecting the groundwater? Are we following LADEQ rules?
Have no idea.
How do we find that out?
Well, you can turn a complaint in, and we have a group that will go out and check it, and it'll probably be turned into the state, and they'll come back and check it as well.
Okay, what about the fire marshal? I don't want them to burn themselves down and then burn my house down while they're doing it.
Well, what is that, District 4?
Yes, sir.
District 4? Okay, you need to call Fire District 4 and talk to them.
I'd like to ask Mr. Miller one quick question. When he was working on some cars, I went over and asked him, what all was he doing over here? And he said, well, he owns a car lot, and he was just tuning these cars up before he puts them on the lot. I'd like to ask him, where is this car lot?
Okay. Anything else?
Now, just to repeat that, as, you know, I sit here and say, I don't care how many people sit there and say, oh, they're in favor of it. You're not living next to it. You're not living in the house next to it, the property owner next to it. When you go to sell it, I guarantee that the property value will not be the same as if there wasn't an auto repair shop next to you. So once again, I just implore you to say no to this. I feel as though they went about it all the wrong ways. Everybody else starts from the beginning, irregardless of what your situation is. I have sympathy. I mean, I understand. We've gone through many things ourselves in our life, but there's a right way and there's a wrong way. and I don't see why you should be rewarded for doing things the wrong way.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All right. Anyone else wish to speak rebuttal that's against this? All right, I'm gonna close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Any of the commissioners wish to speak on this? Commissioner Barcelona.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. So this area is NC4. Are these existing structures within this area, or are they single-family homes, or, I guess
For the most part, yes.
okay, so even though it's NC4, it looks like it's mostly houses within that area.
Yeah, single-family residences is a permitted use under the commercial zoning.
Okay, and from what I can tell, that's, there are single-family residences within that area that are adjacent to the property. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on the commission? Commissioner McInnes.
I would ask Helen, do you suppose these houses were there and the zoning was changed after the homes were there?
That's correct.
Because it seemed like you would take a risk in having a home with that zoning.
It was done
Maybe
through the
these people-
comprehensive rezoning. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, ma'am.
No, go ahead.
It was done through the comprehensive rezoning.
Okay. I'm wondering if people were even aware what the zoning was.
No, we weren't. None of us were.
Anything else?
Have you seen
It's in a residential area.
this?
There's homes all around.
Dale, you have anything else?
No.
Commissioner Barcelona.
So Helen, just to confirm, the PUD to the south, that's residential also?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. We need a motion. Commissioner Crawford.
From what I can see, just again, going back to land use, looking at the NC4 and the A2 and the PUD all around it, I think I'd have to make a motion to deny.
Motion by Commissioner Crawford to deny. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to deny carries.
Thank you. All right. Next item is 2021-2267 ZC. Existing zoning is AT1 Animal Training and Housing District. Proposed zoning is AT1 Animal Training and Housing District and RO Rural Overlay. Parcel located on the north side of Voters Road, south of Miller Road, being 850 Voters Road, Slot L, Ward 8, District 14. It's 2.84 acres. The petitioner is Carrie and Dan Crowley. Owner is Carrie and Dan Crowley. Council District 14. Staff?
The petition property was subject to a 2010 zoning change in which the applicant rezoned the property from A3 to AT1 to accommodate existing horse stables. The current request is to add a rural overlay to the property to accommodate the single-family residence and agricultural uses. The site is currently surrounded by residential uses to the north and the east, and the North Shore Riding Club to the south and the church to the west.
Thank you.
Good evening, how you
Mr.
doing?
Crowley.
How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Yeah, so I fear that ours won't be quite as exciting as the past ones. So we have a few people that live behind us, we've talked with them. North Shore Riding Club is what's in the front of our property, so we own that. We have a church next to us, undeveloped on the other side. And in talking with Helen and understanding we could request a rural overlay, we could put a small residence in the very back and be able to live on the property. So that's what we're looking to do. We're not changing anything other than just adding a residence in the back half.
How long have you owned it?
Since 2003, 2004 timeframe.
Okay, because I know it's been there a while.
Yes, sir. And, you know, so the bottom line is we're all getting older. We're trying to downsize a little bit, and rather than a whole bunch of stuff, travel back and forth to the property as much just becomes a convenience for us as well. So
Okay,
that's all the intended use is for.
thank you.
And just, you know, we've talked to all our neighbors. We haven't seen any opposition and TJ himself has
Okay,
been out to visit the property, and he's good to go.
all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this zoning change? I'll close it to the public, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Crowley. I'm very familiar, and you're very much correct about the property, and I appreciate your relationship also with the church. I had a question concerning if you're gonna do the overlay, where would the egress or the ingress, how would that person get out of that area? Would they still be using Voters Road, or would they use Miller?
That's the intent. Primarily, we'll still use Voters Road, but there is already a culvert and a drive back on Miller Road.
Okay.
So we're not going to be doing any additional work. They would just use the same, because we access the property off of Miller Road for that same culvert when we do stuff on the back of the property. So the house will be in that back half. If they decide to go in and out of there, we may just continue to just go out the front. So
Okay.
nobody would notice any change in what we're doing today.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they do love it when they need our tractor. They come get us.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
They're great people.
With that in mind, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Seeger.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Seeger. Any further discussion? Please vote.
The motion to approve carries.
Thank you. All right. Almost the last item. Next item is 2021-2275-ZC.
No problem.
Existing zoning is HC2 Highway Commercial District. Proposed zoning is HC3 Highway Commercial District. Parcel located on the west side of US 190, south of Chinchuba Cemetery Road, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 10. It's 2.55 acres. The petitioner is BB Mini Storage LLC, Matthew Bennett. The owner is BB Mini Storage LLC, Matthew Bennett. Staff?
The subject property is currently developed with a self-storage facility. While this use is permitted within the existing HC2 Highway Commercial, the applicant would like to increase the size of the buildings. As you can read here on the staff report, the current zoning HC2 allows for a maximum square footage for a commercial building of 40,000 square feet, while the HC3 allows for a maximum allowable size of 250,000 square feet. The site is adjacent to residential uses to the east, south, and west, and adjoins a church to the north. The requested zoning change to HC3 will create an increase in intensity of the allowable uses in the area.
Finally, Mr. Morone, good evening.
Finally, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Paul Marone on behalf of BB Mini Storage LLC and Mr. Bennett. This site, which is just over 2.5 acres, located along Highway 190 between Chinchuba Cemetery and Wisteria. This property is the home of Liberty Mini Storage facility. That facility has been in place and owned by the Bennett family since the late 80s or early 90s. As many of you may know, the Bennetts have been in the mini storage or self-storage business here in Western St. Tammany for about 30 years. And at one time, they were probably the only provider in Western St. Tammany. The request before you this evening is not a request that would allow us to change the use of the property, as Ms. Lambert noted. The intent is to continue to use the property for a self-storage facility. However, The market for self-storage has changed considerably since the early 1990s. If you will recall, I'm sure you're familiar with what a mini storage looked like in the 1990s and early 2000s. It was multiple single-story metal buildings with a metal door up front that you opened up, you had a padlock on it, and that was your space. It was not climate controlled. In 2021, that is no longer the case. Those type facilities are no longer what the market desires or what the market is demanding. Rather, what we see, and if you look at the new mini storages that are being built around St. Tammany Parish, whether it's in Slidell, there's a new one by Lowe's along 190. There's a new one that's just been constructed. They're single buildings, they're multi-story, and they're all climate controlled. And that is where the market has gone. And my clients are keenly aware of that change in the market. These buildings that are on this particular site are about at the end of their useful age, at about 30 years. And so the desire is to modify those buildings to bring them into compliance or what the market is expecting today. Now, the proposal here is to take the center of the property where there are multiple buildings now, remove those buildings and come back with one building. That building would not exceed 35 feet in height, and that's important. Where does the 35 feet come from? Well, the 35 feet in height limitation is in place on the HC3 for this site because we are within 100 feet of a residential property line. But to give you a reference, A4 zoning, residential zoning, maximum height limitation is 35 feet. So it's consistent with what you would find in a residential zone. But let's go into the commercial zones. If we look at the neighborhood commercial zones, NC2, for example, even NC1 with the proper setback, the height requirement is 35 feet. So in my mind, the height is not the issue. That height is achievable today with HC2. It's achievable in the residential zones. It's achievable in the neighborhood commercial zones. The reason for the request is the size of the building. And that is why we are here this evening. And it is solely because of the size of the building. Unfortunately, under HC2, the building size is limited to 40,000 square feet. So today we could go out and we could build on that site the same amount of square footages that we propose in this one building, but we've got to split it into two. We've got to build two 40,000 square foot buildings, which we can do that. However, the problem that creates is twofold. It's not beneficial from my client's standpoint, and it's not beneficial for our neighbor's standpoint. And the reason is, if we take that one building and we split it in two, then we've got to separate it out. We've got to move further to the boundaries of the site because we have to have interior drives, we have to have the ability to turn around, we've got to have porte-cocheres on each of those buildings. The result is that we're not able to keep the use in the center of the site, but rather we have to extend it closer to the property lines. Again, I view that as a loss for my client, but I also view that as a loss for our neighbors, because what we're proposing to you is to stay as far as we can away from those boundary lines. In fact, if you look in your package, you'll see that we propose to keep all of the exterior buildings, the buildings that are in place that line the property line, those would all stay in place. The facade in front along Highway 190, that would stay in place. It would just be the interior portion of the building. We recognize and know that there is a concern about having HC3 and the uses that HC3 could possibly bring to this site. A few points that I would mention. One, it is a very small site. It's 2.5 acres. In talking with staff, we're also prepared to amend our request this evening so that we don't request the entire 2.55 acres as HC3, but only to propose and to ask for rezoning of just the footprint of the building that we propose to build. What has been handed out to you is a site plan that shows just that. And It is the .89 acres that is in the center of the property. And we would propose to amend the request this evening just to that .89 acres that you see there. The second page is the legal description for that particular parcel. By reducing the size, again, that's less of a possibility. I would ask you, .89 acres, HC3, there is very little, if anything, in HC3 that you could build on a parcel that small except for a mini storage. And why do I say that? Because mini storage is the one use that doesn't require parking. Any other use is going to have requisite parking that's got to be accommodated with it. So by shrinking the size, we are limiting the possibility of what could go there. So we would ask for your consideration of that change. This is a unique site. This is a unique situation that I come to you with a mini storage facility that's been there for 30 years, that has the need to keep the use but change how that use is realized. But again, we are trying to do it in a manner where we preserve the exterior buildings so they stay in place. We set back our building as far as we can from those property lines. From the rear property line where we abut residential, I think the building is about 65 feet, 64 or 65 feet. And so with the existing buildings there being set back, we believe that it's appropriate. Again, the height, respectfully, of 35 feet is the same height that's allowed in the neighborhood commercial zone. It's the same height that's there today. If we build today, we will be building at 35 feet. It will just be two buildings, and we will not be centered in the middle of the property. We'll have to expand it out. And we think that's a mistake. We think that's bad for us, and we think it's bad for the neighbors. We would respectfully ask for your consideration. We've got to upgrade this facility lest we become a dinosaur in the market. And we've tried to do it in a manner that is as least burdensome on our neighbors and makes the most sense to us. And we hope that you will agree and you will give us your consideration this evening with the amendment that we have proposed, which is before you, which is to only rezone just the footprint of the building, leaving the remainder of the tract with its current HC2 zoning. And we thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of this change? Seeing no one, we'll go to, I've got two cards that are against. First one is Russell Wilson.
Hi, my name's Russell Wilson. I live at 146 Wisteria Lane. My wife and I have lived there for almost 30 years. The Bennett brothers did develop that property, and we worked, they helped us establish our homeowners association, et cetera. And they were very helpful, and they've kept one of the things that impressed me about what they've done in the past is they've tried to maintain the way the area looks. They put up a nice brick fence that was no higher than surrounding fences for the neighborhood, around in the neighborhood. And now they come in and they want to put a 30-some-odd foot structure that everyone on facing there, that's all they're going to see from their backyard. I don't care if it's in the middle or not, they're still going to see that. And so, I think that's going to affect our property values in the neighborhood. I think I would have appreciated if they had come to the homeowners association meeting and discussed this with us before. We all found out about this through the letter from the commission. And so we had no forewarning about this. I also don't appreciate how they postponed doing the exact same thing in Fontainebleau because it's such a large neighborhood. They're getting a lot of pressure from that. And we're only 17 homes. And so they didn't postpone and didn't want to, come to a homeowners meeting to talk to us about that and show us their plans and et cetera. It may have been a different story if they had done it that way, And then to come back and after people got these letters and to basically threaten us with saying we can go ahead and put up two smaller square foot buildings, but they're still going to be 35 foot high. I mean, it's just not a good neighborly way to talk, to work with us. I mean, if they'd come to us and talked to us about the beginning and talked to us about what they plan to do, maybe it'd be a different story, but they just have approached this totally wrong, about, in my opinion, of how to work with us. And it's totally opposite of what, in the past, how they worked with us in the past. And so, the other thing I'd like to say is, yes, I agree that the mini storage business is changing, but you know, they're also doing it to other places. They own many mini storages in the parish, and on areas that they could, they've turned them into these larger things. So it's not that it's going to be devastating to the Bennett brothers to have one area that's surrounded by a church and small neighborhoods, to not build these structures next to them. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. I have Kenneth Huffman.
Yes, my name's Kenneth Huffman. I live at 4 Autumn Lane, which is in Fern Creek subdivision, which is actually behind the mini storage. We have to use the Chinchuba Cemetery Road as access to our subdivision. So we go along the storage center to access our subdivision at this time. I've been a resident of St. Tammany since '77, actually in Mandeville since '84. We built our house in '98, and I'm basically the vice president of the Fern Creek Owners Association. We believe that the move from the HC2 to the HC3 is what we oppose completely. The idea of having something that's 40,000 square feet versus 250,000 square feet allowable is just something that we think in the future we should be guarding against in this basically residential community that has houses on 3 sides of the storage center. In addition, it's just not correct to, we see the amended petition basically to the board here as trying to get around the fact that they're still trying to go to the HC3 to basically leverage themselves into a position. The whole idea is what is going to happen to this in the future if a big portion of the lot that they own is HC3, where you're going to be looking at not denying them the ability to expand to something much, much greater. How do we know that they're not going to come back to try and get to the 250,000 square feet by going vertical? Even though that's against the 35-foot requirement, it's right now we feel that the HC3 should be denied. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in the audience wish to speak against? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
My name's Tori Drummer. I live at 142 Wisteria Lane. I'm currently the vice president of the Wisteria Homeowners Association. One of the things that I ran into in this situation was twofold. One, we found out about this 3 weeks ago. That has not been enough time to get a true answer from the surrounding communities. So I felt from the start that we should have been able to try to table this to get a decent polling. As it stood, our neighborhood was the only one that was notified of this. I don't believe Fern Creek received letters. I don't believe Cherry Creek received letters. To that end, I would hope that you guys would, if nothing else, table this so the other communities can be notified and alerted and organized as such. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Helen or Aaron, how big of radius do we send out notices?
We send out letters to anyone within 300 feet of the subject property, and then we put door hangers to anyone within 100 feet of the subject property.
100 feet?
Door hangers within 100 feet, letters within 300 feet.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. All right. We go to rebuttal. Mr. Maroon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
First, let me begin by saying that Mr. Bennett reached out to the neighbors that abut this property, not just the mailers and the door hangers that the parish put out, but he sent a personal letter to each of the property owners in Wisteria that abut this property. That abut this property. Some of them are here that got those letters. So to suggest that we tried to hide something, that letter had his personal cell phone number. He asked for anybody to call him. He said that he was willing and we were willing to meet with them to discuss any of this. He received one call for sure. He met with them, and that was all the calls that he received. Now, does that mean that some of the people in Wisteria didn't know? I take them at their word, and I believe that that's probably true. But I will tell you that it is not often that you will have petitioners that will come up here and will tell you that they have reached out and sent letters to the property owners that abut that property in an effort to try to alert them to start a dialogue. Now, was it perfect? Maybe it wasn't a perfect attempt, but it was a sincere and honest attempt to do that. So to say that we handled it poorly, I would tell you that I regret that some people believe that, but I believe that we did what we thought we could do to try to open a dialogue. And I asked Councilwoman O'Brien, have you heard from anybody? Are there any names, anybody that we need to be reaching out to? So maybe they don't like the way we tried to handle it, but I can tell you that we did what we thought was the best way to do that, to open that dialogue, because we wanted to open that dialogue. I do not believe that tabling this case would be appropriate. We would respectfully ask you to make a decision tonight, because as you know, this is a process, right? This is one step in the process. And as I told some of the residents outside when we talked before the meeting, whatever this commission decides tonight, that process doesn't end and our dialogue doesn't have to end. We've got 30 days before whatever decision is made tonight is heard before the council. That is a perfect opportunity for us to continue those dialogue, to talk about some of the things that they brought up to me this evening, some things they would like to see, some things that I think that we might be able to do to address some of those concerns. But I ask that you let the process continue. I ask that you let it continue. Unfortunately, the process here at St. Tammany Parish, there's a lot of waiting around, unfortunately. We've got to wait for these meetings to come up. We don't meet twice a month like some other municipalities and parishes do. So I ask respectfully that you make a decision tonight so that we can continue on that process. With regards to the height, I would just reiterate again that the height that we're proposing, that is the limitation on us and that we will abide by, is the height limitation for our existing zone, for the neighborhood commercial zones that are less intense than us, and for the residential zones. So I would respectfully submit to you that the height of our building is not out of character. It is permitted across the board in the Unified Development Code, and it is therefore appropriate. What size could be built on this property? By limiting the HC3 to 0.89 acres on an entire site that's only 2.5 acres, you're never getting to 250,000 square feet. You can't do it. You just can't do it with the size of the parcel. If this were 10 acres or 20 acres, then you might be able to do it. But you just can't do it and meet the other requirements of St. Tammany Parish. It is not a threat. It is certainly not meant as a threat to suggest what we can do under the current zoning. I am constantly being told, and I've been told tonight, that, we're just worried that people are trying to slide things in. So if I know that we can do two 40,000 square foot buildings at 35 feet in height, and I know we can do it, and I know my client will do that if that is his only option, and I don't say it, you know what I'll be told? You withheld that information. You should have said it. It's not a threat. It is mere facts. I'm trying to get the facts out. I said the same thing to the residents outside. I'm not trying to hide anything. My client's not trying to hide anything. This is a facility that's been in place for 30 years, and we ask for the opportunity to upgrade it with one building, and we ask for your consideration, and we appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you. All right, the folks that spoke against, do you wish to rebut?
Ken Huffman again. Yes, Mr. Morone did state that basically that going to HC2 to HC3 would be no difference. But if you look along Highway 190 in this area, there are no HC3s there based on the parish zoning maps. And we just feel that the Fern Creek Homeowners Association feels that this going from HC2 to HC3 should not be allowed, because we don't know what could be down the road for us with an HC3.
Okay, thank you. The other gentleman wish to speak?
Yeah, I agree with what he just said. If you look around in the area, this would be the largest, tallest building in the area. It doesn't fit in with everything that's around there. And again, they may have notified, the houses that abut, but we're a small neighborhood. It's one street going through there. And so we're right across the street from that as well. So, and I just wish that the Bennett brothers had come and talked to us about it. We've worked with them in the past. They've been very helpful, very nice to work with. And I just would have appreciated if they had come and spoken to us as a group, as opposed to just sending out 4 letters or 5 letters. I mean, that just doesn't seem the right way to do it. So that's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Tory Drummer again. I appreciate that they were able to open a dialogue with us this evening. But because the dialogue started now, instead of a month or 2 months ago, when we could have had enough time to get everyone's feelings and everyone's opinion on it, I still don't think it's the right thing to do to move forward with any decision right now, whether this is the first step in the process or the last. And I think that's where I lay with it.
Okay, thank you. All right, and keep in mind, like Mr. Morone said, there's a 30-day roll on going to the council, and we make a recommendation to the council. So there's gonna be time for y'all to get together with Mr. Morone, Bennett Brothers, and have whatever dialogue you wish, okay? I don't know which way this is gonna go. Bring it back to the commission, Commissioner Seeger. Mr. Morone.
Yes, sir.
How long have the Bennett brothers been doing mini storage?
Since the late 1980s, early 1990s, 30 years plus or minus.
I heard some questions coming up about what happens if they decide to get rid of the property, then what would happen? And with .89 acres, nothing can happen, and they've kind of shown, they've been good neighbors, and they've kind of shown that they're gonna be in this business for a while. They're not a fly-by-night organization, correct?
That's correct, and they have no intention of leaving that facility or any of their facilities. The Bennett brothers themselves all reside here. Their children reside here. Their children are owners of that business now, and that business will continue on into the foreseeable future. There is no intent to change it.
Do you think that they would be amicable to meeting with a larger group of the residents and hearing the concerns of the residents?
Absolutely. I told the residents outside that Mr. Bennett himself, or one of the Bennett brothers, would have been here this evening but had to be out of town. We were prepared to meet before. We are prepared to meet after. I have a list of issues that I will bring up to him, and I fully anticipate that there will be meetings and further discussions on these issues.
That being said, I move that we approve the zoning change with the amendment that it's only for .89 acres to rezone to HC3.
Okay. Commissioner Reese.
Yeah, I've got a question for staff. With the acreage there, the full acreage, 2-point-some acres, 2.55 acres at HC2, what could be there besides a storage unit?
You can have a drive-through restaurant, you can have a mechanic shop, office, retail, a variety of uses.
So nothing quite as mundane as a storage unit. There's some things that could be much,
More intense.
probably more intense uses with the zoning that's already in place, correct?
Yes.
So if, and I'm just thinking out loud for the residents' sake when you're thinking about this. If the owners of the property decided to just sell the property as is with the zoning that's in place because he feels like he can't be competitive in the new market, it's already zoned HC2, and, my fear would be for you that we wouldn't have any say in that. It would come, we would have no say at all. It would just be the parish issuing him under the zoning that's there, and you could face that. I mean, that's not a good situation. I've seen that. I've been here 30 years. I watched Wisteria go in and the Bennett's, how they've developed over this time period. I think the comment that one gentleman made of them being a good neighbor over the time period, I think has been pretty true for Wisteria. I was always amazed at that little stretch of property going back in there. I've driven back in there. And the Bennetts have maintained an outward look of their place that's always been neat and orderly and well taken care of, I believe. I've noticed they've been updating some of their other storage locations over time now. They've been moving more towards, I think they just recently finished one on the service road. If I was to base on what I've seen them do, I think they've been a good neighbor. I think they've been a neighbor that runs something that's quiet, pretty consistent. I think it'll be quieter really with the indoor because you don't have everybody opening up individual door stuff going on the outside. I think it's all indoor air-conditioned operation, much neater, much cleaner. It's probably a nicer operation for you. I think your concerns about the height of the building, I don't know how you get around that. If somebody put houses in there, they'd be 35 foot tall. And they've done a pretty good job of moving back away from the property line. I still think you have opportunity to meet with them, but I kind of have to go with Commissioner Seeger, and I believe it's not a bad situation compared to what you could have. So I second the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Barcelona.
What's the maximum height allowed for HC2?
It's the same.
So for HC2, it's 35 feet is the maximum height?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I see no one else in the queue. Please vote.
The motion to approve carries
Thank you.
as amended.
All right, item 14 was postponed. We have no new business. We have no old business. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
He moved before he even thought of the motion. So moved twice. See you tomorrow. Yeah, see you tomorrow.